Welcome to another edition of Morse World TV. Welcome to another edition of Morse World TV. Is anybody in the building tonight? Is anybody in the building tonight? Let me put on my headphones. Are you able to hear me? Is anyone able to hear me in Morse World TV land? Press 7 if you can hear me in Morse World TV land. So, family, let me say this, family. We back again. We back again with to me, I don't know about y'all, but we're back again tonight with, I think, the best representatives in the defense of Dr. York, hands down. And as I tell you, I truly believe that in these stories that is alleged against our people, found guilty by the system or not even tried yet, these stories are always supposed to be on the table, and we always should be revisiting them. We should always double check back. We should always double back, because we never know who has put the Mickey in the peripheral drink, if you will. You follow what I'm saying? So the point that I'm taking, I mean, the position that I'm taking in this is, I want those who are able to represent Dr. Malachi York on Morse World TV to represent Doc in the best light and let the evidence speak for itself. Because I'm going to tell you something. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was accused by the newspaper and those who wanted to overthrow him. He was accused of molestation of a 12-year-old. He was never tried criminally, but he was accused by people that wanted to see him gone. They put it in the newspaper. They did all of this stuff. I took it upon myself as a researcher to show and prove that there's no way that accusation could even be carried any further, because I was able to knock it out the park and show and prove. But up until then, even to this day, that people haven't caught up to the research that I brought on the matter, they will still say it in anger. They will still say it. And I say, well, come on, challenge me on it. Challenge me on it. I never get any challenges, because they go back and they research, they check the videos, and they find out, wow, he did knock that out the park. You follow what I'm saying? And so, because I know 3 things that the opposition do to our leaders. 1 is try to shame them into silence. 2, they take that shame, try to lock you up and throw away the key. 3, they take you out. That's just how it works. So whenever our people are up against a well-known oppressive system, regardless of how many of our people have agreed, because we are under occupation of the mind, you never know. You just never know. Never close the door. While we are in this oppressive situation, never close the door. Now, after evidence is presented and you are convinced that it's a guilty, then that's your right to prove, to hold that thought. But if you see the evidence and you're allowed to say, God, daggone it, they done did it again, then it's up to you. It's up to you to take apart about to take a part in this effort so justice can take its course. So that's why I'm here. I don't take no sides. The only side I take, and everybody know, is the side of truth. But one of the stories and one of the situations, if you will, in our community that I will forever cater to is hearing the side of Dr. York that we never heard. Again, we heard all of the complaints. We heard all of the accusations. You know what I'm saying? We heard all of these things. But I can say that I've never heard, until the last group that was on the show, give a responsible explanation and ready to answer any questions and produce receipts in defense of Dr. York. So with that being said, family, we got to get started. You dig?
I be that more you gon' remember. I'ma be that more you gon'
That's right, Miss Odell. We ready to learn tonight. We got the best in the building tonight. That's right.
I be that more you gon' remember. I'ma be that more.
We got the best in the building tonight.
I be that more you gon' remember.
That's right. And we ain't gonna have no interruptions.
If you a friend of the Moors, then you's a friend of mine.
We ain't gonna belabor the point.
To watch my enemies, now hold my line.
Woo! We got the whole nation in the building. We got the whole nation in the building. Come on, man. We got the whole nation in the building. We back. Y'all know I get hyper. Y'all know how I do. Now we got the whole nation in the building. Let's go.
And look at that women buying European hair.
Get excited. I got calm now. He's got this man. I like to learn too. But I get excited.
Generation chasing bills, weed and syrup. Yeah, they love no yacht.
Man, it's about to go down. I ain't gonna belay the point. No, I ain't gonna belabor the point, man. Let's get started. I'll be that boy you gon' remember. I'ma be that boy you gon' remember. That's right. I'll be that boy you gon' remember. To Harker Bay, front of line till the law call my number. I'll be that boy you gon' remember. Man, I got to get started, family. I'm ready to get started, family, because I'm gonna tell you one thing about me. I really do appreciate true scholarship. I really do appreciate those who accept challenges. And I really do appreciate discipline. Y'all remember last time Brother Nuwaubians and the other brothers was here and they were so calm. Unc came in there, tried to disrupt, and they were just, no, let them talk. Let them talk. Let them talk. Let them talk. You know, I love that. I love that. And they stood so strong. So family, once again, I'm allow everybody to introduce themselves. And because Nuwaubians was here previously, let's allow Nuwaubians to open up and then pass it around, because this is their show tonight. This is what it is. So Nuwaubians, you can take it away, introduce yourself, and pass it around that everybody else can introduce themselves. And I'm just here to learn, listen, and I'm here with y'all putting forth for Doc. Affectionately, Doc. You know what I mean? In our little circle, we be like, Doc. We be like, Doc.
Roll back, greetings. Can I be heard?
I can hear you well, brother.
All right, greetings. I want to first start off by saying we appreciate you for allowing us onto the platform. You know, it's always respect and love for all of our people. We here speaking on the behalf of Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, affectionately known as Partner Baby at Noon, or as you said, Doc. For many years, there has been a lot of slander and misinformation going around about the master teacher, about Dr. Malachi Z. York, from his doctrine to his case and different things that we for a long time allowed to be said. One thing that everybody must know is that because we didn't respond for quite some time doesn't mean that there wasn't a response. For quite a while, we let everybody say what they had to say to let everybody get out what they had to say. So now you're dealing with the actual facts. We're coming to present the actual facts of Dr. Malachi Z. York's case. Like we said, there's been a lot of misconduct on the behalf of the government officials in Georgia, on the behalf of the court, on the behalf of many different individuals dealing with this case. Um, so I think it's about time we coming up on, like you said, the master teacher's been incarcerated for over 20 years. So it's about time for us to set the record straight and get all of the facts put in place. And we are here to teach and to speak to those who actually want to know the facts of the case. We understand that there's many people who don't like Dr. York. And by all means, that's your right. You do not have to like anybody that you don't like. But when we're dealing with the actual facts of the case, let's deal with the actual facts of the case. And we expect all of those to acknowledge the actual facts of the case. And we're here to say that we're going to take our evidence and present it, and you take your evidence and present it. And if the evidence that you have outweighs the evidence that we have, then by so means you have it. But if the evidence that we have outweighs the evidence that you have, then we expect the same in reverse. So we here once again on the behalf of Dr. Malachi York. You have my brother Sanam Abab, the sister Eatonton Meditet. You have Sakar Aha Hershel. You have Dentut, and you have my good brother Huntui Sanan Atum Reye. And I'll just open it for anybody else to touch on it. Tawakum.
So before we move, before anybody grab it, I'm gonna grab it real quick. Is Dentut available? Are you there, brother?
Greetings.
Now, me and my brother, I think we go back a little ways now, bro. I think we got a little history or something in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, man, I still got the crown that I bought from you, bro. I bought a crown from y'all, bro. I still got it sitting on my dresser and I wear it all the time. But the point that I'm making is that, bro, when I met you, you had told me that you were going. I'm gone. I'm going to Liberia. We out of here. I was like, huh? You going to Liberia? He's like, yeah, we gone. We got some land. You was laying it out. And then the next thing you know, what up, Mafia Lane Entertainment? My man. Next thing I know, you was sending me a message and you was in Liberia. You sent me some pictures in Messenger. So, brother, what has the transition been like? Now, it's been some years now. What has the transition been like for you, and why did you go to Liberia?
Wow, that's a great question. Liberia is a key and pivotal point for us as Africans in America. Period. Dr. York wrote a book on Marcus Garvey and how Marcus Garvey, when he had those steamboats, the steamboats that he had, the destination for those steamboats was Liberia. So when we came, we as the brothers, we came to Liberia together in 2017, and when we came here in seeking attention for Dr. York, because when Dr. York left America, he came to Liberia and he actually became a diplomatic agent for the country. And in becoming a diplomatic agent for the country, this is back in the 90s, when he came back to the United States, he was actually serving as a diplomatic agent, consul general to be specific, for the Republic of Liberia. And while he was there as serving as a consul general, when he got arrested, he was arrested as a diplomat, as a consul general, which America violated these international laws. So, but the thing about it is they knew, because he had his ID on him upon when he was being kidnapped. He had his ID on him. And in him having, while he had his ID on him, they were able to see that, and they hid that. And that's how they even prevented bail from happening. And because if y'all remember, they never even gave him bail, because in the transcripts they say that he's an escape risk to Liberia. And why would you even say escape risk to Liberia? Because they found his identification as a Liberian diplomat or a Liberian consul general on his person on the time of what they call an arrest, which was a kidnap. But now, but what I would like you to do, if it's possible, Brother Tahaka, if we could have share the screen, because the brothers the main thing, we want to be able to show the receipts to the people, because a lot of the times in the past, they thought us not responding or not speaking was because, you know, Dr. York was dead to the wrong. We didn't have nothing to say. But now we really want to go through the transcripts, because the transcripts holds all the evidence and information. But going back to your question, the transition from America to Liberia specific, like, you know, Liberia is little America, because, you know, Liberia was founded by African Americans in 1821 by way of the American colonization society. And I didn't come here by myself. It was a lot of us, you know.
Right.
And then we came here, but myself and Seneb, that's Seneb, that's on the call. He came here, and myself and Sakar, we've been residing here for the past 5 years. Sakar's on the line as well. So, like, you know, so he can also give his piece on the transition, on how he feel the transition has been while we've been here. But not to be long-winded, you know, it's Liberia's little America. 1821 from 2023, you know what I'm saying? You have a lot of stuff that's been established by Liberia on the continent first. So Liberia has a lot of first, and you know, as Sakar says, and because of that, you know, we have a place where we could come and help develop the infrastructure, help push forward in many different ways. I'll land right there, Sakar, if you want to add on.
Yeah, I definitely like to hear that part. Definitely, before we get into the transcript and getting to the screen share. And so, Sakar, yeah, share with us, you know, just to give some people some you know, some idea of what that was all about and what that's like. Did he jump out? We might have to get that on the back end. Let's move forward. If he come back, he probably, let me make sure he ain't locked out. Okay, he might have dropped off. So sometimes the signal get lost. So sometimes people are going to be in and out, in and out, in and out. But let's get to the root of the issue right here. There you go. Sakar, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I definitely first want to just say that we appreciate, you know, we're very appreciative of being able to get down to the facts and the opportunity to be able to, you know, show documents so people can see clearly Dr. York has wrongfully spent 20 years in a super maximum prison. And that's something that people need to understand. And a large majority of that in solitary confinement, right? So now 78 years old, it's just great to be able to have an unbiased platform to be able to show this information. But yeah, definitely everything Dentus said is on point. Everything that Dr. York was teaching as far as do for self, even the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that this place is the epitome of that. So I always let people know it's like, you know, the glass half full, the glass half empty, because obviously, you know, Ghana's a big piece on people's radar right now, right? Before entrepreneur, there's nothing like Liberia, you know, so you could look at it and be like, oh, infrastructure is bad, this and that. But if you're an entrepreneur, these are opportunities for you to come in and solve and create generational wealth. When you look at what's happening in West Africa, right, you see, like, you know, Napoleon Hill talks about the early 1900s, how the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and these different, you know, entities and individuals were able to create billions during that time, right? And imagine what that is now based on inflation, right? That opportunity presents itself here in Liberia. And this is something that Dr. Malachi York saw long time ago. And obviously Marcus Garvey saw that as well. And yeah, so, you know, and this kind of goes into the mindset of Putnam County, the officials that set Dr. York up, the racist mindset, the disregard, total disregard for Dr. York's documents, total disregards for the law, right? So, and again, you know, I also in the chat, somebody asked for some links. So I shared one link to Front Page Africa, which is Liberia's biggest newspaper, both physical print and online. And in that newspaper, several times over, they have published the fact of Dr. York's citizenship and the engagements and his appointment as Consul General. So I'll yield there. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to yield. Hold on, I want to yield the floor to Nabab or anybody who want to host to carry this conversation for us, and I'll just control the controls so I can screen share. So anybody want to take control of the platform and start the conversation? And I'm here as a student, and I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I'm here to make sure these wild people in the chat, if they come through, they get out of here. That's what I'm here for. So anybody want to take the control? Anybody want to screen share and start the conversation? Sis Mary Tot, are you there? Am I saying it right?
Yes, brother. Can I be heard?
Yes, I'd be remiss if I didn't allow you to grace us with your presence and introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Elder I was talking to, he called you out before anybody. So
that's kind.
So you're known in the circles, I guess. But maybe you can familiarize yourself to us with your introduction.
All right. It's an honor to be on the platform in defense of our master teacher, Dr. Malachi York. Of course, I want to begin with he's innocent. In his case, there's no video evidence, no audio evidence, no DNA evidence that supports anything that he's been accused of. And it's a joy for all of us, as my brothers have already addressed. We haven't really gotten out and laid out the facts and the receipts on this case. It hasn't been because we have not had them, but it was for waiting for when the time was right. And we really appreciate a platform like the one you have here, Brother Taharka, where you're looking for facts. You're not looking for the sensationalism. You're not looking for us to be arguing and entertaining, but really having an intellectual, intelligent conversation that we are capable of as melanated people and presenting the facts. So, we're very excited to be here to defend Dr. York, just bringing the facts, bringing the receipts. And I would, definitely encourage all family that's watching. If you are a student of history of any organization, any of our melanated organizations, be it what we're going through right now with Dr. York, be it what was outlined at the beginning of this telecast about the Moorish Science Temple, in all of these movements, our leaders are targeted with false allegations to defame them, usually involving sex and money. So everyone should see the MO that they've used on the master teacher 1,000 miles away if you know the history of our people. So we welcome all our family who are watching, our Sabian family, Moorish Science Temple family, NOI family, if we have Hebrew Israelite family, Christian, Jewish, whatever your thing is melanated people, we family. And we would hope that you would understand and resonate what we're presenting about the master teacher, Dr. Malachi York, on this platform, because this is the same MO that we have seen with Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, even in smaller scales with smaller organizations. We should be able to see this in 2023 as a people. So we want to lay out the indisputable facts. And as my brother said earlier, if you were misinformed, if you maybe spread misinformation, even slander, if what we present, which it will change your mind and darken you to the facts and the reality of what actually happened to Dr. York, just like you passed on that erroneous information, you need to pass on the truth and the facts. So as we're talking, you're going to see visuals, you're going to see links in the chat. As Dr. York has taught us, don't believe me, check it out. We have nothing to hide. A lot of the materials we have, you can see them right on YouTube. These things are posted. There are websites. Do your own research and believe the facts and don't fall for the sensationalism. For myself, I've been walking with Dr. Malachi York since 1999. I'm originally from Chicago, South Side, and I ended up going to school East Coast, learned about the doctrine. It was what I was looking for my entire life. And when I found it and I heard Dr. York's voice and I heard the teachings, I knew I was home. I relocated to Georgia in 2000, and I was a guest on Tama Re, Egypt of the West, 404 Shadydale Road, from November 2001 until we were illegally vacated from the property in 2004. I was present for the raid on May 8th, 2002. And from that day until now. I've been part of so many of us who are on this panel, who are in the chat, who will be watching this, that have steadily fought for the master teacher. The day of the raid, I never dreamed we'd be sitting here in 2023 with him there. Again, in a clean version of hell known as ADX Florence, but all eyes shall behold. He is coming out of there. And so we're going to begin the narrative of all the aspects of this case that may not have been heard. Because people hear a lot of the sensationalism, but there's a lot of context, there's a lot of background, and a multi-layered case that people need to understand, and a lot of facts that have not been presented until now. So we really appreciate, brother, the opportunity to come on the platform and begin this narrative, because each individual piece of this could have a 3 to 4 hour show. It's that profound.
Brother, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said before, I wanted to do this as a series. I don't want to do this as a pop and drop, because just as you said, and somebody else has mentioned before, not before now has the information have been brought to the public. I think Nabab said that, we listen, we let everybody talk. We've been listening for years, and now it's time for us to speak. And so all of these years, I would hear all of these sensationalized platforms, and people probably say that about my platform too, but whatever. But all of these sensationalized platforms just looking for someone to pull the scab off of the wound of lies, of misinformation, disinformation, and just continue to pull that scab off of all of the sensational stories. And we would see people, somebody already said it, Chuck Morgan, we will see the Sonettas looking for somebody to say something crazy rather than trying to find the opposing thought of the craziness. They just look for the next crazy one, the next crazy one, the next crazy one. And so I want this to be a series, because I want to hear the opposing thought on the side of the defense of what I know, without a doubt or contradiction, will shine some light that we have not heard before. And I'm here to hear it. So I just want to yield the floor to anybody who's ready to share and start from the top and take us even higher. Is anybody ready?
Yes, we're ready, brother.
Who needs to share, or who wants to start? And just tell me what I need to do.
I'm going to start off. I think Dr. Receipt needs to be able to share. So brothers, whatever's needed with sharing, if it's an issue, just go ahead and speak on it. And yep. Brother Taharka, I will say, even with some of the individuals you mentioned, the Chuck Morgan, Sonetta, we're open to conversation with all.
Right.
Our goal is to spread the truth.
And that's what I mentioned on my last podcast. One thing I really hold dear is that everyone here is like, okay, come on, bring whoever. The bad was like, come on, let them talk. Let them come on, we good. And I was like, man, that's my guy, because I pride myself when someone attacks Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the teachings thereof, I say, okay, you finish, now my go, and normally when I go, it's a wrap. And so I just love when we can stand on that which we've been taught, because if you've been taught by a master teacher, then you're a master student, and you should be able to defend that which you say you stand on. And so bring it all. That's how I look at it. So with that being said, let's find out who wants to share. Dr. Receipt, are you there? I haven't heard Dr. Receipt yet. Might have a problem with his mic. So anybody want to start and take us from the top? What about the transcript? How is because I hear about the transcripts actually could lend itself to the defense of Dr. York that have not been even examined yet. What part of the transcript can lend itself to the defense of Dr. York? That I know Den Tut had mentioned that many, many times. And so maybe you can explain it to the list. Somebody can explain it to the listening Morse World TV audience and citizens.
When you go into the transcripts, you will see numerous contradictions across the transcripts. So within this case, you have statements called 302s that were collected by the federal government about the alleged victims in this case. And then you have the testimony of these so-called victims in this case. When you do have some of the people who were actually included in those 302s in the indictment against Dr. York and were charged, said nothing happened. So what is happening is, by hiding the transcript, it hides from the public all the contradictions in the stories.
Okay.
That were put forth by the conspirators who were behind this, Jacob York and Nicole Ada Lopez. Those were pressured who were, go ahead, brother.
Let's stop right there. All of this, because, you know, Jacob York been on the show before too. Man, I had to actually kick him off the show because he was just so rude. And he's probably watching now, but he was like, he was angry at Dr. York, but it was unfounded. And he was just throwing vicious stuff. And I remember when I kicked him off the show, the next call I get was from SideNet. He was like, that's Jacob York. You kicked him off your show. I was like, man, I don't care who that is, yo. This guy is tripping. But did it originate the setup, if you will, originate with Jacob York from the beginning?
Yes, it began with Jacob York. What happened with Jacob York, and let's make a correction, his name is actually Yaqub Abdullah Muhammad. It's so ironic that he has this venom and has this conspiracy against Dr. York, but he has leveraged Dr. York's name to his advantage in the music business.
Right.
But his name is Yaqub Abdullah Muhammad. The source of his venom, by many of accounts, is one, his spoiled and entitled nature. He is someone who is delusional and has this unfound anger rooted at Dr. York, because in his mind, Dr. York had something to do with the death of his mother, peace be upon her, Dorothy Johnson, of an aneurysm. However, when you look at his mother's family, her brother died of an aneurysm. I believe her father also died of an aneurysm. So it stands to reason this was something genetic in their family. It had nothing to do with Dr. York. Another reason that he had a lot of rage against Dr. York is, if you look, anyone who knows the music business, Jacob York was part of bringing Little Kim forth. Mm-hmm. And so he went to his father to get support for the finances of Little Kim, who brought in pornographic rap, which is an image that goes against everything Dr. York is as a person, the culture that he represents. He's brought to us that who we are as a people. And he said no. And when he said no, he began basically stomping and having a temper tantrum. And I'm bringing this story not because I was there, but if you listen to the Isles of Patmos CD that Dr. York recorded in the Belly of the Beast in 2004, he gives an account of this interaction. So basically, when he said no, he started stomping, cursing, sped off the land. And I believe amongst us, we have people who were there when that part of it happened. And that started the root of the conspiracy that he constructed along with Nicole Ada Lopez, who is the true molester in this case, who was 24 years old, having a physical, intimate relationship with a 14-year-old. And we have the receipts on that.
Yeah, and that's actually, I don't mean to cut your wisdom, sister, but that is actually documented. And one of the part of the story, and I actually remember that part of the story, was she would basically contribute to this bringing down Dr. York, and she would basically not be held accountable for her indiscretions. And I mean,
let's be straight up. She's favorable in concessions. She's an informant. So what people have to understand in this case, a lot of people behind this case have criminal backgrounds, including Jake York. He's the molester. He was being investigated for tax evasion as a result of a lawsuit that was launched against him by the NBA. because of the sex, drugs, and violence. He took the NBA symbol. I don't know, people from New York. Cameron had an album called Sex, Drugs, and Entertainment. I'm sorry.
Right.
And he used the NBA symbol, but the guy had a gun in his hand. And the NBA sued him for misuse of that symbol. So he had a lot of layers of criminal activity, including check fraud and doctoring bank documents to get house. I mean, this guy is a criminal. See, the irony of this whole case is when you look at the co-conspirators, the true co-conspirators, who's Jake York and Nicole Ida Lopez, and then Sheriff Howard Richard Sills in Putnam County, which is where the land comes in, and we'll get there. They are the criminals. These are people who are committing crimes and then pointing the finger at Dr. York for crimes he did not commit. So criminals look for favorable concessions. They look to be informants. They look to get immunity. And so numerous people in this case got immunity in exchange for testifying against Dr. York, which we have the receipts for. So the root of that has nothing to do with any of the allegations. It is his personal vendetta that he executed with Nicole Ida Lopez, put people in a position, other members who were disgruntled in the community, took advantage of their disgruntled nature, put them in a position where they felt forced to go along with it, or they would get prosecuted with the FBI, and created lies. And we have, I mean, the conspiracy is showing itself because we have numerous recantments. We have numerous video affidavits of people saying they were approached by Jake York. Let's make up some lies to bring him down. How much he hated his father, them not wanting to do it, him being persuasive, and then saying, oh, well, you know, the FBI has something on you, so you better go along with it.
Let's deal with with what they would call the proverbial elephant in the room. How was it that they were able to, like, so the word is that Dr. York was convicted of molestation and sex trafficking or child trafficking and all that. But when you look at the case, you really don't see that. Could you explain exactly what he was convicted of and how he was convicted?
But
or anybody could grab that.
Is it possible to present? I don't
Sure.
know if we have the visual of the charges that we can present.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dr. Receipt can do
If
that.
Dr. Receipt can screen share, he's in now. I think he was having a problem earlier, but he just came back in. Dr. Receipt, Are you there?
Yeah, I think he's having a problem, some complications with
You have a problem with connecting?
Screen. Yeah, with sharing the screen portion part. So I think he's still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I think right down the bottom, he should be able to see a line. It should be a row, and it should be like a TV that says share. If you press that, it will say screen, video, and then under that it'll say background.
While we're waiting, also, and this is in the chat, I just want to elevate this point. Dr. York wasn't convicted of child molestation. What has happened is the press has put forward the state case, which is now dead docketed, and that has nothing to do with the federal case, which are the charges that Dr. York is being wrongfully detained for. Molestation is not in the federal. And so that has been conflagrated over the years, and that's where the confusion comes from. Not only do we have several people who said nothing happened that were using the indictment against Dr. York. That is not what happened in the federal. And there's a whole link between the state case and the federal case that we may get to, of how one case was used in the other.
So the federal case, so he's in federal custody right now, right?
Correct.
So what was the actual charges of the federal cases?
It had to do with I want to show the actual charges. That's why I'm waiting to see if we can pull it up.
I got you. Let me tell you something. Let's do this. Would somebody be able to just let me see, message me and I can screen share it if need be? If we get, maybe Dentu can message me and maybe I can screen share. Because I think Dr. Receipt having a little issue over there, probably connecting. So with that being said, is Brother Sakar there?
Yes, my brother, I'm here.
How you doing, brother? How you doing, brother? Let's get some insight. Who is Brother Sakar, brother? Talk to us, brother.
Oh, well, shoot. Thank you for asking. I'm a student of Dr. York's. I unfortunately never got an opportunity to meet Dr. York. I actually learned of the information through music, like I think a lot of people did, you know, back in the 90s. You know, the Nas's mentioning Dr. York, Triple Threat with him, Nature, Noriega, the true author. No, what did he say? He said, don't want to shoot my people, but they might clap me because I talk like Dr. Malachi York. So at that time, coming up from, being from Jersey City, you know, and also my family coming from a Nation of Islam background, but then, you know, my mother wound up going the Sunni Islam route. So, and then my grandmother, Catholic, right? So I was like in the middle, like learning all these different spaces. Not only that, my grandparents come from out of Moncks Corner, you know, Native American, from off of, you know, as far as Cherokee is concerned. Like if you look at like my grandmother's grandparents, like grandmother straight, you know, long, you know, looking straight like she's off of, you know, out of a Native American tribe. And interestingly enough, my great grandfather was a student of Elijah Muhammad. So he heard of Elijah Muhammad back in like the 40s and 50s. And my grandmother she told me, she was like, her father basically stopped drinking based on the teachings and the things that he learned from Elijah Muhammad. So me coming from all of that, it allowed me to be able to kind of question certain narratives that were being pushed on me. And it was when I got that opportunity to actually get my first book, you know, is when I was able to be able to say, okay, whoa, you know, who is this brother? You follow what I'm talking about? So this is, you know, 90s. I'm in Jersey. I moved to Atlanta. By the time I moved to Atlanta, 2002, you know, I hear that Dr. York gets arrested. My mind automatically, just based off of, you know, the autobiography of Malcolm X, and, you know, I'm talking about, like, it's so many different things. I'm like, this man, like, you know, I'm talking about, like, all of it, you know, all this information that he put out, you know, because like books like Set the Record Straight kind of tied a lot of information in for me, you know, understanding how Africans initially got into America, you know, not all from slavery. Some of us were here, as you know, obviously. And so it just was like, it never sat well with me. So from that point, you know, I wanted to do my best to see how I could assist, because, you know, Dr. York did pull me out of the muck and mire just through his books, who I, interestingly enough, got my first book from a Russian kid. Believe it or not, you know, a friend of mine, he's a Russian guy. We grew up together. We were DJing, doing music together. And, you know, he wound up, you know, coming across Dr. York's information. He put it in my hand, and that was it, man. And from there, you know, I've dedicated my time to say, okay, look, I need to assist this brother because he's innocent. Then when you start getting into the transcripts, then you start finding out, you know, and that's why this is so important. And I see people in the chat talking about there's a narrative that, you know, they've heard this before, but no, they haven't, because no one has shown like these transcripts. Like, first of all, Jelaine Ward, the initial investigating FBI agent, at one of the arraignment hearings, at the bond hearing, told the court that she had no evidence connecting Dr. York with, you know, because one of the charges, which they'll go into, I think I just saw the screen being shared, was, you know, transporting children across state lines for the intent. And they were asked, do you have evidence proving that? And she said, no, this is on the transcripts. This is on the transcripts. Another one, I just want to Tariq, is it right? Is that one of the guys that's been going around saying,
one of the accused,
initially his intake form from DFACS, which is, you know, their, you know, Family and Children's Services in the state of Georgia, right? You know, I guess they got DIFACS up north, it's DFACS in the south. It says abuse denied. This is what his intake form says. You follow what I'm talking about? But people don't notice because they didn't have access to the transcripts, because remember, they sealed the transcripts. The transcripts weren't even able to be, or us to be able to get public access until 2009. where we were able to get a redacted version of it, because remember, there's alleged children involved. But now let's go into that. There were no children in this case at the time of Dr. York's arrest. The 5 children of the 13 that they alleged that Dr. York had quote unquote molested, the 5 children were taken into de facto custody, then rewarded back to their parents because there were no traces or signs of abuse. And this was during Judge Spivey in that district made that decision and awarded the children back to the parents. And guess what? Those same children are on his indictment and part of his sentencing. So these are the different pieces that no one has seen before. And this is why we're excited to be able to finally show this. Yeah. And I'll yield there.
Bro, thank you so much. Appreciate your passion, man. I'm an excited person, man. I get very excited. I really get pumped up when people are passionate. When our people are passionate about truth, what they stand on, and man, it really pumps me up. So I'm just smiling. I'm excited. It is what it is. So whatever the case may be. Dr. Receipts got the receipts on the screen. So I'm gonna yield the floor to Dr. Receipt.
It's to Hawk, if I may, real quick. This is Den Tut. What I want to say is that, what I want to say is that, a lot of people have to really realize what we're showing is not Photoshop documents. These are transcripts, receipts that are being shown to show you as evidence that this was a kangaroo court, that Dr. York got railroaded, that this is the situation, just like the gentleman that just left got released after 34 years in Florida. This thing happens all the time. So it's like, even after they see this, after they hear it, it always go back to they just sweep it under the rug that Dr. York is guilty. So this is very important that y'all pay attention to what's about to be shown right now. This is very, very important. I yield.
Indeed. So I think Dr. Receipt, can you hear me, brother? I think he the one that did the screen share, but anybody can speak on what we're looking at. I think Sister Marita was saying she wanted to see it, so it's up here now. Anybody want to speak on this?
So when you're looking at these counts, you're looking at Rico counts. There's a Mann Act count and Mann Act forfeiture counts. What's very important to understand about the Rico is that the Rico charge was added because the initial allegations against Dr. York, the false allegations, had run their course in terms of the statute of limitations. So what they did in the superseding indictments, they added the Rico so they could stretch back and use the false charges outside the window of the statute of limitations. So the question one has to ask is, this is racketeering, influence, corrupt organizations charge. This is something that was designed for the mafia. This is something that is about a criminal enterprise, but there was no evidence of a criminal enterprise happening. Also, when you look at these counts against Dr. York and Kathy Johnson York, in count one, you see interstate commerce with intent. When you open up the transcripts, you will see there's no proof of intent for the interstate commerce. The acts that they presented, there was no proof of any intent of interstate commerce. What they are using, and I know one of our brothers can speak on this, is the movement of then members of the community from upstate New York down to Georgia. In that trip, Dr. York did not travel with children with the intent for commerce. He traveled with his biological children. He was not in the first group to come down. And if, Brother Seneb, if you could speak more about that transition from Sullivan County down to Georgia, because they're trying to use that to justify this particular count, and that's not accurate.
Brother Seneb there?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me? We can hear you.
I don't know why I can't hear. I can't hear no noise.
Now we can hear you very well.
Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you. Well, this tech, whenever we start talking about conversations like this, or we get them serious grifters in the chokehold, boy, technology sure got a way to play games. Are you still there?
Let me ask this: while he's getting that together, the brother Hunsweet, could we expound on the fact, because I see somebody in the chat, but we definitely want to be able to be open to answer all these questions. Somebody was asking about the guilty plea. First and foremost, you know, one thing people don't know is that Dr. York initially, May 9th, 2002, pled not guilty. You know, this is all on the record. This is Atlanta Journal-Constitution, so on and so forth. So his initial plea was not guilty. So now, after a year and a half of being tortured, not being able to see his attorneys, then, and everybody's seen the video online, everybody's seen the shape the brother was in. People see that. Then you see the guilty plea. Now, one thing no one ever talks about is that 97% of all federal cases end in a guilty, they are plead out. That's a fact. You can look up the Pew Foundation research agency, right? And I'll drop the link in the chat as well. So only 3% of federal cases go to trial. 97% end in a plea. Now, also remember, he didn't get 135 years because he pled guilty. He got 135 years because when he did finally have an attorney that he agreed that could actually fight the case for him, he withdrew the not guilty plea. I'm sorry, the guilty plea. I'm sorry, he withdrew the guilty plea, then pled not guilty, and then went in and fought the case. And what the government did, what the state did, was they wanted to taint, because remember, the jury, it was hard to find a jury that didn't know about the case, to find an unbiased jury. So the decision was made to move the case from out of the district of where it was, which was, I think, the 11th Circuit, and then moved into Savannah's area, where the Judge Ashley C. Royal, where he comes out of, that area where he's from, which is Brunswick, Georgia. And then when the case was moved there, the state and the feds released the video unlawfully of Dr. York's plea to taint the jury in that area prior to that jury being selected. And I don't know, Funsu, if you would like to expound on that some more for us, that'd be great.
Let me, man. So are you saying that the guilty plea had no bearing on this case? Because it's the public perception that the guilty plea was the end all be all in that video where clearly he looks under the influence, or something is going on. Let me just say that something's going on.
Definitely under duress.
Yeah, something is going on. With that being said, did that guilty plea have any bearing on the outcome, or it was actually thrown out?
But that's the whole point, is that the guilty plea was put out to the masses to influence the jury pool. So this is another interesting point of the case, is that we know that when a case of this magnitude is brought before a person is charged with these types of charges, they usually go to a grand jury, right? And so the reason why the case was moved from the Macon area to Brunswick, Georgia, is because they determined that in Macon, because of all the negative publicity, that Macon itself was a tainted jury pool. And being a tainted jury pool, they moved it from Macon to Brunswick. But at the same time, they selected the grand jury who is the one who decides whether the prosecution has enough evidence for the case to proceed with criminal charges, the grand jury was pulled from that same jury pool that they determined was tainted. So there was a lot of bias in terms of Dr. York's case, and that video being released was part of that. They wanted to influence people to sway them into that, to convicting Dr. York. But still, going to the facts of the case, there was definitely enough evidence presented to show reasonable doubt. The prosecution definitely did not show without a shadow of a doubt that Dr. York was guilty, because there's so many holes in the story, so many discrepancies. And one of the main things that we actually have, where a doctor who was a part of our medical association, who independently examined the evidence, and him being a OBGYN, Dr. Bright, was very familiar with what happens from molestation, from sexual intercourse, from normal sexual intercourse to forced sexual intercourse. He's very familiar with what happens during that time. And so in his examination of the evidence, he made a video affidavit. And in that video affidavit, he coined what is called the consistent inconsistencies. And basically what he said, if a person shows that they've had sexual intercourse, or there is some scarring, or things of that nature, that is consistent with molestation. And when people were examined and there were no signs of any scarring, any sexual intercourse, the prosecution also said that was consistent with molestation. And so these were the types of things that Dr. York was faced against, which made it very difficult to defend. You can't defend if you say, hey, this person has evidence of having sexual intercourse, this person doesn't, but they both are consistent with molestation. It's ridiculous.
Has any efforts, okay, if the plea didn't stand, has any efforts been made to how do one get back in court at this stage of the game? It's 20 years later. They got his conviction. Is any efforts made, or is the efforts more moving towards the diplomatic immunity? How do you unravel this, if I can, for the lack of a better term?
Well, we can look at this, several things. First of all, yes, the efforts are definitely being made for Dr. York's freedom in terms of his diplomatic status. But at the same time, those individuals, Jacob York, as well as Nicole Ada Lopez, are themselves being investigated, because not only they are the ones who are responsible for bringing this forward. If anybody remembers, there was a Discover ID program in which Nicole Lopez was on. And one of the things that the sheriff who was responsible for this case, Sheriff Howard Richard Seals, one of the things he revealed, even contrary to what Jacob York, because there's plenty of videos where he explains, hey, I had nothing to do with this case. If I was a part of this case, I would have been brought to the witness stand, things, so on and so forth. But we know, based on the case, that Jacob York was definitely a part of this conspiracy. And one thing that Sheriff Richard Seals revealed was that they didn't have a case until Jacob York came forward to Sheriff Richard Seals. And this was right after they had this whole trip in South Beach, Florida, where the whole conspiracy was put together. And Jacob York even documents this whole trip himself. We have the video of that. So yes, there's efforts being made to free Dr. York, and it will happen.
May I just add one point on that conspiracy aspect? Once again, those who are pointing the finger are committing the crime. So the charge of transporting with intent to engage in illegal commerce that has been launched against Dr. York, that's actually what Jacob York was doing in a trip to South Beach. He basically took underage girls across state lines from Georgia to Florida, engaged in sexual intercourse with numerous people having intercourse with underage girls. And this was all part of forming the conspiracy, because on this trip in 2001 to Florida, to Sheridan Bell Harbor, that was the car trip back and forth where these individuals were targeted due to being disgruntled towards Dr. York, their issues and displeasures with the disciplined cultural way of life that was being maintained on Tama Re, and feeling forced because of many of them, their families, even their mothers, facing criminal charges possibly, to collaborate on this false ruse that they launched against Dr. York. So when we're really talking about Rico, we need to be talking about Jacob York. When we're talking about transporting with the intent to engage in interstate commerce, we need to be talking about Jacob York, not Dr. Malachi York.
So someone in the chat section said, well, what's the motive? You know, we hear about land grab and other motives by the government. What would be the ultimate motive behind trying to bring Dr. York down, as well as the land and everything? Anybody can grab that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We can start contextually about the land grab, and then we can funnel down into the specifics, you know, with Dr. York, because we think we want everything to be understood in a historical context.
Right. Take it away.
Okay, so in the case, because some may wonder, in approaching the case and this being a first of a series, why would we even discuss the land as one of the first topics after the initial show about Dr. York's case? So if you're thinking about the case, it's three main buckets that's behind the agenda of conspiring to falsely accuse and imprison Dr. York. So first bucket would be him as a teacher, right? Anyone who knows history knows about COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program. The main point of COINTELPRO is the fear of the coming of the Black Messiah. So any of our teachers who appear to get and capture the hearts and minds of our people were targeted from COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO actually started with J. Edgar Hoover trying to attack the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey in 1925, and it lasted till he died in the 70s. Okay, so that's one bucket. And again, we see it with Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, King, Elijah Muhammad, right? Black Panthers, that infiltration. Another bucket is what Dr. York is teaching. Elevation of melanated people, teaching us to live by self and kind, teaching us no one wins the race and racism, teaching the truth, which is dangerous on the shores of this nation that's built on lies and white supremacy. So there's been adverse forces 60 years that Dr. York has been combating and teaching us and uplifting humanity, right? Specifically for melanated people, continuing the work of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, addressing diasporic Africans, and working for us to return back to Africa. When you look at the land, it's two aspects of the land that were problematic for the problems that be. One, what we were doing on the land of Tama Re, on that property. Peaceful, drug-free, violence-free, a place of spiritual uplift, knowledge, learning, building. You know, this is somewhere in 1997, if anybody was alive in the 90s, to have, if you were in your 20s, teens, to have 30,000 melanated people be able to gather in one place safely, that was happening on the land. So that's another aspect, what was actually happening on the land. You know, this is somewhere where you're not seeing any negative images, you're not seeing negative music, you're not seeing the manifestation of hatred of self and kind, you're seeing cultural dances, you're seeing spiritual sites, you're seeing a lot of young melanated people and people of all races gathering for spiritual uplift, for knowledge. The deeper level of the thing about the land is the actual ownership of the actual property. And I think over the years in us discussing the case, we have been remiss in really understanding the role of the land and the land grab in what they are doing to Dr. Malachi York. I mean, it's very obvious, a teacher, the teachings, but the actual physical land being owned by someone, he used to say, you know, my freckles are too close, and utilized by those living for self and kind, melanated people, free of drugs, alcohol, negative images, all the things that you get in the world, and with the agendas of those surrounding us in Putnam County, a lot of corruption, in Eatonton, a lot of corruption, plans that they wanted for that physical property that goes all the way up the chain. They sought to do another land grab. So there's a history of land grabs, of course, with the indigenous people of this country and those who are termed African Americans. If you're in Atlanta, everybody knows Lake Lanier. And I think it's become more public that Lake Lanier was actually a Black town. Were you aware of that, Brother Taharka?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So Lake Lanier is in Forsyth County. And those of you who live in Atlanta know a lot of weird stuff tends to happen in Lake Lanier. That was the town of Oscarville, Georgia. And as a result of a rape accusation against 2 Black teens in 1912, basically white people, just like Black Wall Street, which is very much the spirit of what Tama Re is, Black Wall Street, but the same story, false rape allegations, a mob of white people terrorized, drove out, killed everybody in the area until the whole town disappeared, from 1,000 Black people to 190 in you know, starting with 1,000 Black residents and eventually ending up with 0 in 1920. They flooded the area, and that's Lake Lanier. So if you go to the bottom of Lake Lanier, there are houses, there are schools, there are churches, there are structures. The whole town is underneath. So there's 1,000 drowned Black cities. So the history of the land grab is something we've been going through as a people for a long time, and it's just now coming up. Even Central Park, those who are in New York, when you look at the whole that is Central Park, that was Seneca Village, and that was destroyed because people lived in one area called York Hill in Central Park, got ran out of that to build the duck reservoir for Central Park. And then the space that you see, if you look at Manhattan, it's a whole, that was Seneca Village where our people lived. So it's a long history of land grabs from our people. This is one of them. It's the extra layers, of course, of what's happening on the land and who Dr. Malachi York is and his impact worldwide in the middle of Georgia. But I think, you know, we really need to understand this is something that's been systematically done and it kind of slips under the rug, and we can unpackage how the conspiracy actually connects to not only incarcerating Dr. York, but getting that physical property. So all those layers of how that physical land connects to the case, we're going to unpackage as we continue.
That's a lot. That's a lot to really take in. Because and we're talking about 20 years. Like, how long has it been? It's been over 20 years later. Does anybody that would be in a position to help bring this to a close? Is anybody giving an ear? Is anybody filing any injunctions? I mean, you know, because what I'm hearing right now, I haven't heard anybody refute. And even the last show, some of the same information is being repeated, but now we're seeing the receipts on the screen and we haven't seen anybody refute anything. But is it anything in that's somebody in position to say, yeah, okay, let's move in this direction from a legal standpoint?
Well, let me just touch on that. Well, you know, Brother Tahaka, we can't put all our eggs out on the board. We gotta do certain things
Oh,
behind
absolutely.
closed doors. So, but there's definitely efforts that's taking place. Like even in what we're doing right now is a part of that effort is showing the public, because we got to realize a lot of how and it sounds confusing when you really look at Dr. York's case and you really look at the things that took place. People ask, well, if he was innocent, why did he plead guilty? Why was this whole town up against him? All of these different questions, and it seems kind of absurd. But what a lot of people don't realize is when you're dealing with a small racist town like Eatonton, Georgia, and it's not open to the world, especially at a time where the media wasn't as powerful as it is now, these kangaroo courts can do whatever they want, however they want. And as long as there's no one there to stop it or put eyes on it, then it'll go unnoticed. And this is what they did. And to take it a step further, not only did they do it at a time and in a place where people couldn't say, wait a minute, this case don't look right, but they also closed down the court. So anybody who did have the opportunity to see what was going on, they said, no, you're not allowed to see what was going on. The only person who stepped up and said something was going wrong is when you look at Dr. York's case, there was a juror number 62, who was an African woman or a black woman. She stood up and said that I've seen this before. She said that y'all railroading this man. And they took her and they recharged the whole jury and they sent her out and judged Dr. York with a jury that wasn't of his peers. And this was the only black woman who was a part of that. And now going back to, we got to realize that there was different motives in this case. And when you're dealing with the Georgia government, the racist government, and somebody like Sheriff Howard Richard Fields, is that they were looking for any and every way. So they did things like trying to find building code violations. They did things like trying to look into his past and look into his history and see what was going on. And they was literally picking out any and every possible thing that they can do, even to the point where they gave him this name, Dwight D. York, which is, he's never put that on any record. He's never confirmed that was his name anywhere. Actually, that was one of his son's name, who was taking care of some of the business for him, is known as Dwight D. York. And anybody who knows him know you can get in contact with him to this day. That was Dwight York. And what they did was, because his son was handling his business, and this is, you can find this in a case where his attorney was named Attorney Goldberg. They actually fought this case. And in this case, they acknowledged that the Dwight York, who was being acknowledged as Dwight York, and Malachi Z. York was two completely different people when they physically saw them in person.
I'm sorry, brother. That's a revelation, because that's a real revelation, because on the internet, on these social media highways, even in the newspapers, people had connected the Dwight York as being synonymous with Malachi Z. York for the longest time. For the longest time. Let me also share this. I don't know if this is the Tariq Noel, but Tariq, you've heard, if you've been watching, you already heard that no one is running from any conversation. You don't really have to just text and have a conversation to yourself. If you're interested in this conversation now or later, you're welcome to lay out what you want. The panel is open for that discussion. You don't really have to discuss this by yourself in the chat. You actually can discuss it with the brothers and sisters if that's what you wish to do. I yield it back to you, Nabat.
No, definitely. We definitely encourage for anybody, Tariq, his sister, Jacob, whoever it is, to come up and say whatever it is that you have to say and speak your piece, and then we can go from there. But when you look into Dr. York, you'll see that the whole Dwight D. York was a misnomer that was given to him to tie him into certain things that was done outside of himself. And one thing we got to remember, and I'm not sure because I had to step away for a second, but we got to remember that this case with Dr. York is all based on intent. So we're sitting here and we're even entertaining the idea of a molestation conversation just for the entertainment. But if we really getting into Dr. York's case, you won't see child molestation. You see the RICO, you see the racketeering, and it's all based on intent. What do we mean by that? Is that they charged him with the intent to do things. And we've said this before, they charged him with the intent of molestation. But what people fail to realize If they found him guilty of the intent to molest these children, you would have had to found him guilty for the molestation if you're still tagging him with that. Now, why isn't he sentenced, or why isn't he charged with child molestation? Why is it only the intent there? You cannot remove the whole premise of the charge, which is the molestation, and then keep the intent if you wasn't able to find him guilty on the molestation, meaning that you didn't have any video evidence, you didn't have any DNA evidence, you had witnesses who were corroborating their statements and then found to be lying on the stand. You had witnesses like Tariq Noel, or quote unquote victims like Tariq Noel, who stated certain things on the stand and added people into his statement. Then those same people came up and testified and said that they were lying. Why is this important? Because you can, now it creates a doubt within, when we deal with the American system, how we're supposed to sentence somebody is without a shadow of a doubt. They have to be found guilty without a shadow of a doubt. Now, when you got people that were removed off the stand because they was found to be lying, when you got people like if somebody can remember the name, it escapes me right now, but one of the quote unquote victims that testified against Dr. York was found to be a murderer at the time of his testimony, where he testified against Dr. York. He killed an old white woman.
Abdul Salam in Athens.
Exactly, Abdul Salam. And you can look his case up right now. He was found to be a murderer. So at the time of his testimony, he was a murderer. Ada Nicole Lopez, she was a child molester. She was having sex, and we have records of that and letters of that, of her talking about how she was in love and how she was having sex with Kush Martinez at the time when he was 14 and she was between 23 to 24. Now, this is the question that we always ask, is when we're talking about the case of Dr. York, is it really about protecting children, or is it a bunch of disgruntled people who didn't like the way he taught, who didn't like the things he taught about, who didn't like the way the land was ran, who didn't like certain things, or certain victims who were actually victimized by the Georgia government or the Eatonton government and forced to testify against Dr. York? Because if it's really about protecting children, Ada admitted to molesting children. So much so to the point where she got a government agreement to, or an immunity agreement for her to testify against Dr. York. So when we talking about this whole Dr. York thing, is it really about protecting children? Because in the Dr. York case, there was no evidence ever found in Dr. York's case that he wasn't sentenced for child molestation. They got him on Rico and racketeering. Rico and racketeering, and when you look into the court case, you'll see that they say that he actually overpaid his taxes when they were trying to get him on tax evasion. You'll see that they admitted that the state prosecutor admitted that they didn't have any evidence, and that they said on the record that we don't have any evidence that these children were ever molested. When you look at Tariq's statement with the medical examiner, he actually states that he was never abused. And when you look at the actual records, and we have those as well, if you just give us a second to pull it up, Tariq stated that he denied abuse. He denied ever being abused. So now we're dealing with 20 years later when people are coming back and saying, oh, well, this happened to me. Oh, well, that happened to me. Why does your statement not line up? Why is it that for years, Jacob York said he had nothing to do with the case? For years, everybody a part of the case said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case. Why is it that Sheriff Howard Richard Fields said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case? Why is it that the judge that presided over Dr. Malachi York's case said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case? And we actually have video recording of Jacob York stating where he says that actually my father subpoenaed for me to come in court, and the judge denied it because the judge said this guy has nothing to do with the case. Why do you keep trying to bring him into court? Yet you have Sheriff Howard Richard Fields that comes out on Discover ID and states that he didn't have a case if it wasn't for Jacob York. And if you give us a second, we can pull that video up and you can see that as well, where Sheriff Howard Richard Fields states that I didn't have a case. The whole case started when Jacob York came to me. So if Sheriff Howard Richard Fields is stating that the whole case started when Jacob York came to him, why was it being said by the judge that he had nothing to do with the case? Why was Fields saying they had nothing to do with the case? And why were all of the other co-conspirators that conspired against Dr. Malachi York all saying that he had nothing to do with the case, when the sheriff who made the arrest himself is now saying that he wouldn't have had a case if Jacob York didn't never come to him? Now, why is that important? Because when you go to one of the key witnesses, who was Habiba Washington states that she was coerced by Jacob York in the trip to South Beach, Georgia, and that they lined everything up and they talked about how they were going to come together against Dr. York, and they put all of their gripes together and said what they was going to do to come against Dr. York. And then Jacob York set the whole thing up Habiba Washington explains how Jacob York took her to the FBI office and had her speak to the FBI. She explains the whole thing. And now Sheriff Howard Richard Seals comes out saying that he wouldn't have had a case, and he explains the exact same thing that Habiba Washington explained in her recantment. And that's another point that a lot of people miss, is that a lot of these quote unquote victims or witnesses went back and recanted their statements saying that nothing ever happened to them, that they was coerced by the United States government, or they was told that certain things was going to happen to them or their family or their parents, or certain things that happened. Prime example, like Tariq Noel. And in a second, we're going to get to this video because I think this is important for everybody to hear. But when you look at Tariq Noel and you look at his mother, it was a known fact that his mother came into the community by way of fraud, dealing with some Panamanian fraud, check fraud, and things of that nature. That his family was dealing with fraud, and this is what the government used to use against them to say, if you don't help us take Dr. York down, we're going to go against your mother. We're going to go against. And there's letters that Tariq Noel wrote to his mother that we have records of, where he's stating that he had to do certain things because he was afraid that it was going to come out about what they was doing with the house. So when we ask what was the motive and why did all of these people do these things, one thing we got to get clear is that it wasn't a lot of people, and we heard this previously, that there was stated that there was thousands of victims in this case. There wasn't thousands of victims in this case, for one. Two, is that when you look at the majority of the victims, it was between 12 to 13 people, and 8 out of those 12 to 13 people all came back and recanted their statements saying that nothing ever happened to them. So those are just certain points that I want to bring up, and just bringing it back to the video that we have on the screen now, is we want to show this because this is them speaking from their own words. So you can't say that we coerced them. You can't say, because Sheriff Howard Richard still hates us to this day. So what interest or what reason would he have to corroborate the same thing that we've been saying when he's been against us since the beginning of the time? So when we get a chance, or when we're ready, we can go ahead and play that video and give everybody the opportunity to hear that.
There it is, right there. Good.
About a real nation, our own nation, right here. But no one tells us what to do but us.
There's to me, it seems like they're trying to take over.
I think if I was that instrumental in the case, I would have been on the stand. That's how I believe.
Jacob York wanted to meet with me to tell me what was really going on. So I said, fine, I'll meet you at the FBI office in Atlanta in the morning at 9 o'clock.
Different people that left the community, he wanted us to bring a case against his father.
I think if I was that instrumental in the case, I would have been on the stand. That's how I believe.
And it was myself, Karima, Nicole, Farah, Noah Rashid, and some other driver, I don't remember his name. And Jacob brought up the conversation again, how he thinks that we should really go to the government with a story about his father. Anything that we didn't like in the community, we should go, because his father needed to be in jail. His father did not do good things. He was not happy with his father, and he really felt that a case should be brought up against his father. He really felt that his father should be put away for life, that he did not deserve to live. Jacob had a conversation with me again, and he told me that there were certain children that did go to the FBI about different things with myself, and that there was no way I would be able to prove that it didn't happen. The only way I can make any good of it is to go to the FBI with a story, seek immunity, and just go from there. I still told Jacob that I was not interested in doing that there was nothing that I've witnessed or nothing that I've known that was going on. But Jacob believed that because the FBI knew who I was and because they were told things about me, that it was best that I go to them and talk to them and see what's up. I went to the FBI the following day.
In the morning at 9 o'clock.
Jacob, they called Jacob at first. If I sat in the car, Jacob talked with them. I don't know what the conversation was about because I wasn't in the room and I wasn't told what the conversation was about. But Jacob went up there and I stated my name. I stated who I was. They asked me about different children. They asked me about they called out different names like Amala and Crystal. And I told them, you know, I knew those children. I knew whatever names they brought up. If I knew the person, I told them I knew the person. They told me they asked me to state my life and the reasons why I left and the reason why I was there. I told them about life in the community, growing up, why we left. I was questioned about the money charges. The money situation, because I did deal with the financial situation. I told them how we ran our finances. I ran off, different people that I knew that was there, different people that I knew that had left and why they left. They asked me about certain children. They asked me about certain stories that they were told. And I told them that, yeah, I went along with the story. I told them that, yes, I did do these things. I felt that I had to tell them that yes, because I was told that they already knew, and there was no way for me to deny anything that didn't happen or anything that did happen. I had to tell them what I felt that they knew, because I felt that, like Jacob told me, they already knew the story, and there was no way that I can say that it didn't happen. I would have to prosecute myself to make whatever was said against his father, make it more real, make it sound more believable. If we all prosecuted ourselves, then whatever we say about Malachi would be believable. That interview ended by them asking me different people that I knew that would want to talk, different members that I knew that would want to assist them in the case. The only names that I knew were other members that I knew that were disgruntled. Like Nicole had her own issues with Malachi. Karima had her own issues with Malachi. Sakina also. Amala, Crystal, different people that I knew that had issues against him. I gave them those names. So after that, they started calling different people and everybody kind of got involved. Everybody called everybody, and that's how the case kind of started.
I don't know why the government put him up. I think it was too dangerous to put him up. I wouldn't call Jacob York because I know he would say a lot of negative stuff, but they weren't going to call Jacob York for me to properly cross-examine him to bring out the fact that all these witnesses went on a trip to South Beach in Miami a little bit before they started going to the government. It kind of came up with this plan. We had witnesses as to that. We even had a witness that was willing to say that Jacob York stated that he was setting his father up. But the government, the court wouldn't allow him to come in. His own sister.
All right, and I just wanted to take a second just to let everybody know what's going on here. What we're looking at is the first man that you've seen, Sheriff Howard Richard Seals, the white man that was speaking originally. That was the sheriff of Eatonton, Georgia, who actually acted on the arrest against Dr. York. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that was the actual sheriff that acted on the arrest against Dr. York. The woman you just seen speaking, that was one of the key witnesses, who was Habiba Washington. She was one of the government witnesses that testified against Dr. York, saying that things happened to her, and this is her recantment and her video stating why she said the things that she said and how Jacob York was behind the whole conspiracy to set up her father. Not to set up her father, to set up Dr. Malachi York.
Nabab, real quick, Tahaka, could you please let Meditate back in? I do apologize.
No, I see it.
And I think Dr. Receipt got knocked off too.
They're not back yet. Yeah. So one of the things, even the chat said, one of the things is is Dr. York getting back in court? Is that an option? Or, and I know I asked before, but I'm just going to ask again, is so people will know, is Dr. York getting back in court, or is, I know it's going to work both angles, but I'm going to just let you answer it. Is he going back to court? Is it more promising to get back in court, or more promising for the diplomatic status to kick in? If you without saying too much.
Well, one thing you gotta realize is and when you look at the way Dr. York moves and the way Dr. York always moves, that we never put all our eggs in one basket. So it's not just about getting back in court. It's not just about the diplomatic status. It's all of it in one. You have the diplomatic status. You have the actual conspiracy or the legal route. You have the Native American route. All of these play different parts in the freedom of Dr. Malachi York. And this is one thing that we have to deal with as a people, is that Dr. York's whole purpose and premise was to fight for the freedom of our people as a whole. And how we tie that into his freedom as an individual is that Dr. York was a Native American, and he fought for his Native American status. So in him fighting for his freedom, he's also fighting for his recognition as a Native American and all of those who fall under the recognition of Africans being Native Americans or indigenous to this planet or indigenous to this land. When you fight for the Africans or the Pan-Africans or the ones going back to Africa, we fight for that, and for any of those who decide to get onto that with us as Africans being brought here in America and our homeland being Africa. We fight for the Muslim Americans or Africans. We fight for the Christian. All of those are different aspects, and this is what Dr. York, Malachi York, his whole plot and plan was, is that it's not just about fighting for his freedom and getting him out alone, is that he consistently ties in all of the teachings, consistently ties in all of the doctrine, consistently ties in the fact that we can be Moors if we decide to be Moors. We can be Israelites if we decide to be Israelites. We can be Native Americans. We can be Muslims. We can be aliens, extraterrestrials. We can be from Egypt, from Africa, because all of those who decide it's our purpose as Nuwaubians, as Sabians, was to fight for our freedom as a whole of a people. It's not about my teachings against your teachings. It's not about my teacher against yours or any. We all have found ourselves in the same position. We've all been taken advantage of by the world, by those who quote unquote control the world now. So for us to find our liberation, we have to show that we're at the time where we have the ability to be liberated by not allowing them to take down one of our leaders, incarcerate them, kill them, as they've done every leader in the past. Is that we come to a time where we have to say, when are we going to stand up? When are we going to say enough is enough? We as a people rebuilt Black Wall Street in Georgia. We was the rebuild of that. And we allowed them to tear down the original Black Wall Street, and then we're going to allow them to tear down the second coming of that? Or are we at some point going to say, you know what? We don't believe what you say about our leaders anymore. We don't believe what you say about our teachers anymore. We have created our own nation with our own language, with our own dress, with our own religion, with our own beliefs. And it's not up for you to recognize us. It's up for us to recognize us. So when you ask, what is it about the Liberian? Is it about it's all of that as a whole, the same way it's always been when we listen to our teachers or our doctrine. Am I a Christian? Yes, I'm a Christian. Am I a Muslim? Yes, I'm a Muslim. Am I a Moor? Yes, I'm a Moor. Am I Israelite? I can be all of those in one, because we the root of all of that. So when it goes to the legal, it's the exact same way. So I just wanted to say that without saying too much. We're never going to reveal the can you hear me?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, we're never going to reveal our tactics of what we're doing behind closed doors. Those who know, but Dr. Malachi York will be free. And those who committed these actual crimes, whether you believe it or not, are being investigated. And those people who actually committed these crimes are going to serve time in jail, because those people actually committed real crimes. The crimes that was put on Dr. Malachi York was crimes that was committed by his son, Jacob York. There's videos of multiple people talking about how Jacob York molested them as children. There's videos of Gucci Mane on YouTube talking about how he had to separate himself from Jacob York because he was obsessed with that type of weird stuff. So when you look into the history of Jacob York, there's multiple stories within his community of how Jacob York was doing things. And this is a part of the reason why he hated his father, is because Jacob York had in his mind that because he was the son of Dr. York, that he couldn't be touched, that nobody could do anything to him, that nobody could say anything to him, until he was found doing something with one of the other younger boys, and Dr. York kicked him out of the community. And that kind of broke his religion, because he realized, damn, I can be touched. And not only can I be touched, but I'm getting kicked out of the community. And like my sister said earlier, Meditet, is that then his mother passes away. Then he gets into the music industry, and he decides that he wants to get funded by by Jacob York. By Malachi York, and Malachi York denies it. So it built up an animosity in him that he felt like he needed to get back at his father. And this is how the whole conspiracy started. But it started with Jacob York actually taking real crimes that he was doing and putting it on his father, and just throwing everything on him, and now having his father spend time in jail for those things. But the last thing I wanted to say is that now when you look at this video that we're playing here, this is one of Dr. York's earlier attorneys, Attorney Adrian Patrick, explaining what happened in the case and why he was trying to, during Dr. York's case, he was trying to get the judge to bring in Jacob York, and the judge kept denying it and kept saying that he had nothing to do with it. So he was explaining how he couldn't bring him in as a witness because he knew Jacob York would have said a bunch of negative things, but the prosecutor kept denying or wouldn't allow them to bring Jacob York on the stand, because they knew that it was going to tie the whole conspiracy together, and this is why they kept Jacob York out of it. So I just want to finish the last of this video, and then we can get into it, because we said on this show we coming with the receipts and we coming with facts. So I hear that they're saying Tariq is in the chat. If you're in the chat, come up here. But whoever's in the chat, if you had all of these things to say, I've seen and heard Tariq say multiple times that he was ready to sit down and have a conversation and talk about it. So let's sit down and have a conversation and talk about it. But what happens a lot of times is that they don't really want to have that conversation where we can respond. They rather have the conversation where there is no response, so that they can say whatever they want to say, and it doesn't make them look foolish on the internet. But no, let's come on, let's have a real conversation and not divert it to try to get into people's personal life and attack people, because that's what happens all the time. Is anytime we get into Dr. York's case, Tariq never answers what actually happened to you. He says that Dr. York molested him. What happened? Because according to his statement, he says that he was never penetrated by Dr. York on record. So if Dr. York actually molested you, why did you say on record that you was never penetrated by Dr. Malachi York? So which one is true? Did it happen or did it not happen? And these are the things and the facts of the case that we have to get into, because what they've done is they've created a case like this where it's a real touchy subject, and it's a real touchy topic, where you have people talking about things that happen to quote unquote children. One thing we got to note is that at the time of this whole case, none of these people were children. All of these people were well over their 20s and was very much adults. And the only two children that quote unquote children that was a part of it, out of the two, one of them said nothing ever happened to him. And that same one is the same person that Tariq Noel claims was in every incident that happened with him when he was molested by Dr. York. So how is it that you claiming that every time you was molested, this one person, Issa Johnson, was there with you, but then Issa Johnson gets put up on the stand, and Issa Johnson was taken off the land and held in de facto custody until it came time for him to testify against Dr. Malachi York. So we couldn't have coerced him into saying what we wanted him to say. The defects brought him into court and had him testify against Dr. Malachi York. And when Issa Johnson got up on the stand, he actually changed his statement. At the time, he didn't say what the prosecutor thought he was going to say. He actually changed his statement and said nothing ever happened to him, and that he was coerced, and that the government actually told him that they know Dr. York did something to him, and that they know that he was molested, and Dr. York was this bad person. And he said nothing ever happened to me. I was told that I was molested. I was told that all of these things happened to me, but I told them multiple times that nothing ever happened to me. Why is this important? It's because that discredits Tariq Noel, because Tariq Noel claims that every time something happened, that Issa Johnson was there with him. So how do we explain those type of things? And this is why, and I'm asking to you, Taharka, how do we explain those type of things? Because we get into the actual transcripts of the case and the facts of the case, and people act like we're not bringing up real facts. Why is that? Because it's personal issues that they have against Dr. York. It's personal issues that they have with his teachings. It's personal issues that they have with the tribe and his family. So when we ask the questions, how is it that Tariq claims that when he was molested, Issa Johnson was there, but Issa Johnson says nothing ever happened to him. And at the time, Issa Johnson got on the stand and said nothing ever happened to him. How is it that these type of things happen? And then Tariq Noel is still used as a credible source to sentence Dr. York? How is that possible?
My whole thing is everything that is presented, I see as a reasonable cause to revisit this, to get these things lifted. And that's the only thing, it's a few people in the chat, I think Cryptonomics put in there, and it's a few other people, they were saying like blame York, blame Jacob York, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think everybody want to see this to come to a conclusion of Dr. York getting free or signing off on it. I want to see it come to a conclusion that all of these people be held accountable for all that they have done to make this a reality that is now a nightmare for Dr. York. Jacob York, Habiba. If that be true, and we just listen to out her own mouth, what happens, 5 years from now? Is this conversation still going on, or are these people going to be held accountable? So like you said, I know you can't give up everything, but I think that's the more concern of the listening audience. Like, okay, we got you. But now, how do we get this thing lifted? Because this is definitely a miscarriage of justice. Just listen to Habiba right there. And I will admit, when you look at Tariq Noel say one thing, and I actually read another thing that contradicts each other, like, are we really going by this? And I don't want to speak lightly of anybody who has experienced those type of violations that Tariq may speak of, or anybody else speak of. But you can't keep doubling back on these stories. If something happened, it happened. Like, you can't say, yeah, it did, and then nay, it didn't. Or, yeah, it did, but not like that or like this. Because if something happened, that's traumatic. You ain't going to keep on doubling back on it. And that's just my opinion on that. You know what I mean? Somebody said, enemy is going inside and out. Enemy is enemy. Somebody said, facts be told, if this much energy was used to get him locked up, it's probably that much energy to keep him locked up from his own folks. Just
Brother Bay,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned an interesting point. You yourself have seen the contradictions of the brother Tariq Noel. And that's something that's one of the reasons why we're here. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of lies that have been going on. And this brother, Tariq Noel, has been one of the main advocates for these false allegations. And he has contradicted himself many a time on the stand. He's actually signed a affidavit that he handwritten and explaining how nothing happened.
And I actually seen that. So
exactly.
real quick. How did I haven't kept up with this. How did he explain that affidavit? Has he ever tried to explain the affidavit away? Anybody? Like, what would be the reasoning? What would be the reasoning to say nothing ever happened in the affidavit, and then come back on some a year later or whatever it was, and then say, oh yeah, well, it did happen? Did he ever explain why he did that?
He hasn't explained it, but the reasoning of him going back, he's really trying to protect his family. He's trying to protect his sister, who is the real child molester in this case, and as the brother explained, protect the federal government from going after his mother. So he is trying to protect his family. But the reality is that even prior, he explained, there's a letter that we have where he explained that he only went along with it to protect his family. So he is a liar. And as you said earlier, the purpose of us here is not to belittle anyone who has actually been a victim of molestation in any way. We're not trying to belittle any victims. We're advocates for people who are actually been molested. But this case is not about that. This case is about people who lied and conspired to convict Dr. York.
Right. This is just tough because I've heard all the other side, and it's an emotional. He did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, and I actually, you know, I'm really really good friends, I would say, with Uma York. That's my sis, her and her husband. You know, have y'all tried to get with some of the family members who also is in that space to try to bring the truth to the light? Because a lot of times I see a lot of so like when Uma was on the show and her sister called in, her sister that didn't go too well. Her sister, I still hope that they could have a conversation. You know, like we got to mature and try to have a conversation and get to the bottom of it. You know, I think her sister is pretty mad, pretty upset. Is that Habiba or the other sister? What's the other sister name? I forget.
No, that's Leah.
That's Leah.
Leah. So, but have y'all got with any family members who's trying to fight for the cause to free Doc? Or is that all scattered? Because as Uma put it, you know, it's been always a tug of war within the family tribe, if you will.
Just to touch on that, yeah, we have, but like you said, it is a tug of war on both sides. You got to remember, once we got dispersed, that everybody
Uma's in here now, so that's my sis. You know, so I just want to make you aware. Uma writes. Matter of fact, I'll show it. She says, no, that no one, I guess, you know what I mean, try to link up with the family or maybe even her. But I'll yield the floor to you, brother.
Like I said, yeah, there's been many different efforts. Even Dr. York's sister is very well involved. Some of Dr. York's sons as well is involved with his case, like we mentioned earlier. His niece, there's many different ones, but like we said, since this whole situation happened, there's a lot of confusion that comes from this situation, from the family members and just as every family has their issues, there's always a tug of war. You know, you have the children, you have the tribe, you have the nation, and everybody has their own sentiments and their own feelings. But to answer your question directly, yes, there's actually some, to this day, there's many of Dr. York's actual family members, relatives that are dealing with Dr. York's case. Like you said, when you get into that, if we being straightforward, you're going to get into a lot of confusion when it comes to the inner workings of the family and the tribe, and how some family members feel about the tribe and how some tribal members feel about the family. And you're going to get into a lot of politics and who feels that this should happen and who feels that that should happen and things of that nature. But right now, Dr. York is very well still alive. He's very much so still communicating with individuals and different people, explaining what's happening with his case, telling people and talking to attorneys for his freedom. And like you said, as some of the people that you see on here, as well as myself, has been involved with Dr. York, has been involved with his attorneys, has been directly involved with him for many, many, many years now. So we're getting direct hand information from Dr. York on what he wants with his case, how he wants things to be held, even transcriptions of these things that are happening here, these interviews. All of this stuff is very much so still being sent to Dr. York, and so he's very much so still involved in it. Now, I did want to address one thing that you said, is when you said, why is it that some of these people made these statements and then went back and recanted it? you have to realize that a lot of these people didn't intend for this to happen this bad. They didn't intend for Dr. York to get sentenced to life in jail. They didn't intend for the land to get taken and everybody to get pushed out. They didn't intend for this whole situation to blow up this big. What happened was a lot of them was used, and like that's what I mentioned earlier. A lot of them were victims of the manipulation of the Georgia government that said, if you're not gonna do this, then this is gonna happen to your mother, this is gonna happen to your brother, this is gonna happen to your sister. So after this took place and everything subsided, these individuals came back, and this is why you started seeing recantments, and this is why you started seeing affidavits, because a lot of these people didn't expect for it to blow up this big. A lot of them were people that was really on the land. A lot of them were people that was there during the raid. A lot of you, and you got to remember that, is that you had a lot of people that actually lived on the land and was a part of the community. Then you had Nuwaubians or Sabians that was a part of the community that didn't live on the land. A lot of these people who you see as witnesses or victims were people who actually lived around Dr. York, who actually lived on the land. And some of them were really just victimized. They were taken control of by the government, and they didn't have a choice. So they did what they felt that they had to do. Either my mother goes to jail or I pin this on Dr. York. And, you know, that's what a lot of them did.
Can we explain what's being?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to myself. My apology. No, I was saying that I was reading the comments, and Uma York was like, add me on. And I was asking y'all, did y'all have a problem with speaking with Sister Uma York? I'm looking at I'm sorry, I was reading the comments, and it seemed like it was getting a little bit heated in the comment section. And so that's what I was asking before I let this link out here. Anybody want to answer, speak with Uma York on the panel? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We just don't want it to go off course of what is the point that we put together. Not to say that Uma would not contribute, but the purpose of us coming on here and the series of coming on here is to be able to, you know, set the record straight first and foremost. Allow the public to see the transcripts, and by seeing the transcripts, they see that, okay, it's not just passionate people trying to defend a person. You know, it's tribal members of a tribe that's presenting documents that happen in the court that's never been seen before, that have been swept under the rug. Because what happened is everyone, the general public, is Dr. York got arrested for child molestation. Hard stop, period. He was convicted for molesting thousands of children.
Dan Chut, let's hit these transcripts. And I don't mean to cut your wisdom, but we got the transcripts on the screen. Could you or someone else direct us and to show us what we're looking at and go over that? I'm gonna use the restroom. I'm gonna turn it up so I can hear. But yeah, direct us into these transcripts so we know what we're looking at. I think that's very important.
Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
How you doing? How you doing, Targa?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well.
Yeah. All right. So so one of the things is I think that we have to look at is and one, you know, we don't mind care coming as long as it's respectful and as long as it's to contribute towards, you know, what we're doing towards, you know, her father innocence and freedom, his father's freeing his name, right? You know, and not only care, but you know, as well as what about Tariq? Is he willing to come and speak? Is anybody willing to come and ask questions? Because I think that people have to put their questions out there, you know, and that's what we go off. You know, we go off the questions based upon what people, and that's what we've been doing for years in Wusabat. You know, going off people asking us questions, this question and answer. So if y'all not coming with the questions, you know, but it's a lot of skepticism. We could be, you know, listen, right? Dr. York probably got one of the longest, right, transcripts in the history, man, of any documents, right? You know, he got one of the longest dockets, right, than any other case. So there's no way we'll be able to go through all of the transcripts, all of the trial. It's so much, right? It's inconceivable, right, for most people, even most attorneys, right? So if people got questions, or these the so-called alleged victims, right, are saying the victim, let's put them on the mic. Where they at? Is he still in, or are they running?
Yeah, we're not speaking about the transcript. I'm talking about key points. That
key points in the transcripts. Okay, like say for example, right? Like Dr. Receive, you can share the screen, right? If you can see the screen, right?
Yes,
if
sir.
you look at this,
Yep.
right? This is Issa Johnson, right? A testimony, right? And as my brother was saying earlier, y'all have to pay very close attention to certain things, right? They utilize, right, Issa Johnson in order, right, to arrest Dr. York. This is one of two people, right, that was within the bills of particular, who they actually gave him the first count, the very first, what they say count one, what they said what actually created the indictment itself, what created the search, what created the investigation, right, is based upon this person right here, Issa Johnson, right? So and according to this transcript, as you see, it says Issa. Just make sure, right? It says this is the Issa Johnson government witness, direct examination. The court states your name, please. Witness Issa Michael Johnson, right? Court, all right. Mr. Gray, can you pull up and make a little closer? Issa Johnson, make your sure you speak directly into that mic. Okay, how old are you, Issa? 15. Right now, this is very important because there were only two juveniles that was on the actual case. There was only two, right? It was Issa Johnson, right? And it was Crystal Harden, which was known as Belora. All right. So now it's how old are you, Issa? 15. And do you know Dwight York? Yes. And do you see Mr. York in the courtroom? Yes. Will you describe what he is wearing? I can see him fully, but I could see his face. Would you like to stand up? Right? A suit, Mr. Mochi. Issa, how old are you currently? 15. Are you, and growing up, how did you think about Mr. York in your life? My father, right? Do you still consider him to be your father? Now remember this. This is somebody who was snatched up, right, off the land, that was in the government custody all the way up into this very point that we're actually reading right now. He was separated away from his mother. He was separated away from his father, right? And he was in the government custody, right? As a government witness. This is a government witness here, right? Did Mr. York ever sexually molest you? No, not at all. Do you know a lady named Jana Waddell? Yes, I do. Who is she? A caseworker. Is she your caseworker? Yes. And do you recall telling Jana Waddell that Mr. York began messing with you when you were 7 or 8? No. And that it lasted for about 3 years? No. Do you recall telling Crystal, do you know Crystal Harden? Yes. She's also known as Belora. Yes. Did you tell Belora that Mr. York molested you? No. Do you know Sapphire LaRoche? Yes, I do. Did you tell Sapphire LaRoche that Mr. York molested you? No. Issa Johnson, did you ever write a letter to Mr. York? Yes. And did you recall if in any of those letters you talked about being with him in his house? Yes. Issa, I'm going to show you what been tendered as government exhibit 118 and 119. And I just want to ask you if you recognize these two letters. Yes. And Issa, are these two of the letters you wrote to Mr. York? Yes. Mr. Mochi, I just want to confirm that the clerk, that these exhibit 118 and 119 were tendered. Now, this is the little game that they play, right? It's because these actual, that's considered evidence when they just submitted that into court. It didn't mean nothing. It had no weight to it. It was just, okay, yeah, here's this little piece of item, right? How are you doing, Issa Johnson? Fine. And you, Mr. Johnson, do you recall the day that the land was raided? Yes. On that day, were you taken into de facto custody? Is that correct? Yes. And were you away from the land? Well, let me ask you this. Where did you go when you left the land? Where did they take you to? Milledgeville, right? Milledgeville is the same place that Dr. York actually was arrested. He was not arrested in Putnam County. He was arrested in Baldwin County, Milledgeville, Georgia, right? You, along with several other children that were on the land, were taken away, correct? Yes. You need to speak up a little louder. All right, on that day, were you asked or not the defendant had ever molested you? Was I asked? Did anyone ask you that? Yes. And what did you tell them? No. Right? So this is the hypocrisy, right, that goes on, right, within this particular case, right, that we're talking about. How is it, right, that the very person, right, that they have, right, for the bills of particular, you know, the bills of particular is dealing specifically with the people who's involved to actually indict Dr. York. And all this is after the plea. This is after the plea, and they rejected the plea. This is the actual trial that this is actually being spoken. There's a government witness, and this is the main person that they had in the case at the time. You understand that, Brother Talker?
Yeah, yeah. And again, everything that I'm looking at, why is this not back in court? You know what I'm saying? And I don't say nothing because I know, you know, y'all got a plan and a strategy and all of that, but I think that's going to be the actual expectations of everybody. You know what I mean? Like all of this mountains and mountains of evidence, this need to be back before the court, period. You know what I mean? How it's going to happen, we don't know, but you know what I'm saying? That it's just too much.
Yeah, but Tahaga, if you want, definitely have Uma come up. And again, I just hope that everything stays on course with us.
Well, we got about 15 minutes. So matter of fact, I'll do it like this. Let me. So then and to say let her come up. So Sister Uma. Respect that, I guess, because I don't know what was going on in that chat. Nah, I'm just playing. That's my sis. Hold up. Let me see if I can get the link. All right. So nobody hit this link except for Sister Uma. All right. There you go. Because everybody. So I just put the link in there for Sister Uma, but we're not gonna belabor any points, and we're not gonna give any of this presentations any black eyes, if you will, because the evidence is the evidence. But I think Uma York, she might be making a different type of point or something. I know that they tell me we want Uma like this baseball.
Yeah. Talker, can you hear me? I think the Sister Mary Tech, right? She said her link is not working, or her mic is not working. She's been trying to
I'm sorry.
get in.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Where is she? I don't see her. She's not. Let me hold up. Can somebody send her another link? Let me send. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I'm telling you, every time we do this, things be acting up with this. So I'm gonna send this to Dentut one more time, a link, and maybe he can resend it to Sis. I don't know why that link not working, but people been dropping in and out all evening. So let me. I'm gonna send you this. I'm gonna send you another link. It's basically the same link, but maybe it's a refresher link. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, there she go. I just heard it.
Can I be heard?
Yes, indeed, sis. There you go. I don't know what just happened, sis. I be trying to watch everything because I definitely don't want a whole bunch of attacks in the comment section. So I'm watching that, and I'm over here. So I didn't even realize that you dropped off. But the floor is yours, sis. Oh, she dropped off again. So I sent Uma the link. Let me see something. Let's do it like this. Give me a second. Let's see if I can do it like this. Wait a second. All right, so look, I just let me get my tap back in. All right, sis, are you there? Are you there, sis? Oh, there
Yes.
You go. Okay.
Yes, I'm having audio issues. I'm sorry. I don't even know where we left off. I've been having issues probably for the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something, Sister Mary, that when these conversations come about, the last time we just blacked all the way out. And fortunately, just like right now, and I got my other computer on standby just in case. So this is something that is very common when we're dealing with these conversations. So I guess you understand.
I already know, and that means we were having a good conversation if all the complexities are coming. So that's all good.
And again, like I said last time, the whole screen went black and shut down, and I ain't never heard that. So, but with that being said, sis, basically we was just having a conversation about some of the misinformation on the transcript, and some of the transcript. I mean, the information on the transcript lends itself that what people are saying didn't really happen, basically.
Okay. Understood. I did see something in the chat. There was some confusion about Ada versus Jake with the molestation claims, and this does actually relate to the transcripts.
Yes.
So just to clarify, there's two things I saw in the chat that I really want us to clarify and repeat, because maybe it's people who are just coming on. One thing with Nicole Ada Lopez, somebody asked, I thought Jake was a molester. He is. Nicole Ada Lopez, she is. When you look in the transcript, she acknowledges that she had sexual activity on 2 occasions with one of the boys on the land who was 15 or 16 when she was 23 or 24. We also have a video affidavit of this boy's sister saying the exact same thing. So you're not confused. Both parties are actually engaging in molestation.
All right, hold up. Can you hear me?
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so was that point about Ada Lopez heard and clarified?
Yep, very clear. So yeah, go ahead.
And then relating to Tariq Noel, when we talk about the transcripts, there's a lot of examples of judicial misconduct. So when you actually go into the trial transcripts, you can see where the judge actually coached the prosecution, that even though Tariq Noel denied the allegations, he actually coached them to find something to substantiate that Tariq was molested. So that's another layer that I don't think we have brought up. When you look in the transcripts, there's many instances of judicial bias where the judge acts sua sponte to actually coach the prosecution and actually bring up an issue that the prosecution nor the defense actually brought up.
Wow. I'm paying attention to all of this.
And one more thing, we keep seeing people in the chat talking about children, and I think the brother Nabab already addressed. These are grown people. There were only 2 actual children who testified. Both maintained that Dr. York was not guilty of anything, any of the allegations against him. So that is something that continues to be, I think, when people mention child molestation and people say, what happened with the children? What happened with the children? There are no children. These are grown adults and 2 juveniles. The 2 juveniles also maintained that nothing happened. So again, because we've had in the media or on different platforms, people take the state case and those allegations and overlap them with the federal allegations. In the state, there are no 208 alleged victims, as people are reporting. So you're hearing we were on the platform, people saying there were thousands of victims. There's been 208 alleged victims. There weren't. And there were 13. And out of the 13, 5 of them were kidnapped on May 8th. And when they were examined while in de facto custody, Judge Spivey in the juvenile court of Jones County determined that none of the children who were taken from the land, the 5 children, had any signs of being molested. And then they're still found in the indictment and the charges against Dr. York. But in their courts, it was found that they had no evidence of being molested. And they are saying they were not molested. But yet they're still included in the charges against Dr. York. So we have all these children who denied anything happened. There's no evidence that anything happened. There are recantments for those who initially said something happened and then recanted. Another thing I think we have to address too is the mentality of the people involved in this case. I think people don't understand the mentality that led people, because people would say, well, if it didn't happen, how could they get coerced? And I think we explored the part of it where they were protecting their family. They were giving favorable concessions. They were getting immunity. But even before you get into the South Beach conspiracy, there was a letter written prior to that by some of the youth on the land talking about how they were disgruntled, talking about how they didn't like the discipline, talking about how they wanted to basically do whatever they want. And at that time, they talked about doing something against Dr. York. These are the same people who were later recruited for the South Beach conspiracy. And when you look at the people who went to South Beach with Jacob York, you can directly connect people who were on that trip with people that you see in the indictment and people that you see as these alleged victims. So this is a very strategic plot to basically take advantage of disgruntled individuals who are basically very, very sheltered from the world, who are typical adolescents who were frustrated, but that frustration was actually exploited by Jacob York, who was in the world, who was doing the embellishment, who promised them they could get book deals, who promised them they could get money, who showed them documentaries of Jim Jones and showed them documentaries of Charles Manson and Jonestown to convince them they were in a cult. They were manipulated by Jacob York. He actually created an environment to manipulate them, take advantage of those who were disgruntled, to lie on some and say, hey, they already gonna get you anyway. You may as well go along with the story. And they went along with it. And the reason they were so ripe to be exploited in that way is because they had the blessing of being in the community, shielded from a lot of the embellishment. They actually did not have the context of, if you go to the FBI and make up these lies, this could end up in a case where Dr. York gets 135 years. So it's the double-edged sword in them being sheltered from the world, in the land and the communities being created. Most of us came, not just for us, but for the children, so they wouldn't be exposed to drugs, alcohol, negative influences. But these particular disgruntled children, in their desire to want what they thought was out there for them, got exploited and participated in this conspiracy to frame Dr. York. So I see in the chat where people are like, oh, we want to know what's happening with the legal, which of course we do. But one thing, because we haven't spoken ever about the case, there is a lot of context for people to understand that the conspiracy occurred, why it occurred, and how it could occur. So that's what we're trying to walk everyone through and answer these questions as they come along. But there are no children. There is no physical evidence, as the brother Huni already mentioned. Dr. Frederick Bright, who is an expert witness who is trained to look for any indications of molestation, wrote a lengthy report about how what was presented in the case did not sustain any indication of molestation. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say that everything that you're saying here, I'm looking in the, you know what I mean, I see a lot of stuff going up in the chat, but I'm looking for rebuttals. I'm looking for, I don't see any of those things. I just don't see any of that in the comment section. It seems like every time these presentations happen on Moorish World TV, there's always some sort of response that is not on the, I guess, on the record type response. It's like, oh no, he did it, or, you know what I mean? Things like that. But I don't see anybody saying that, you know, they wanted to challenge it with some sort of evidence.
Because there isn't any to challenge it. Because it didn't happen.
Yeah. So I'm reading through this. It says, somebody says, I asked one of the sisters the same questions before all of this happened. They wanted money. They didn't know it would go this far. One of them said, let me read another comment. It says, we have to realize, one second. We have to realize that any plea is a guilty plea, and it addressed because jurisdictions can be challenged at any time. Okay. So yeah, I don't see.
And can I just address something I'm seeing in the chat? And you know,
I'm
brothers,
trying to follow
I think
this stuff. There's a lot of comments here. So
yeah,
if y'all see anything you want to address, feel free to.
I think it's a bit naive, especially with the experience of melanated people in this country, to say no one is ever going to plead to something that they did not do. And I know we touched on this a little earlier, but we have statistics that 98% of cases end in some kind of plea on the federal level. And of the 2%.
And excuse me, sis, let me address this. So wait, Tahaka feels York is innocent too. No, I don't have a horse in a race per se. The only horse that I have in a race is that I know that this oppressive system have a way to remix, flip, and then throw it back at you. And so what I'm saying is that if you have something to rebut this position right here, you're welcome to bring it to the table. I haven't heard a defense for Dr. York in this type of fashion since the last time Brother Nabab and the rest have been on this show. So what I'm saying is, if you have something to debunk this information, bring it forth. You know, I'm not saying guilty or not guilty. I'm saying that I haven't seen a representation of his innocence like this since I've been on the internet. I just haven't. And so this is why I give this a platform, because now, you know, we had the Chuck Morris going all over this place and that place, and he made a whole social media platform and living, if you will, a name for itself with a bunch of accusations, and he made himself a Dr. York's agitator scholar, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying that if even Nabab said, if Chuck Morgan want to step up, then step up. So that's what I'm saying. This is the other side of the story. Anybody ever see that European Paul Harvey? When I was in college, they only had that European station on, and he would come on and say a part of the story, and then he said, now here's the rest of the story. Family, we should be able to hear both sides of the story. And Morse World TV is here to hear this side of the story. I've already heard the other side 1,000,001 times, and I'm sure you have too. Period, point blank. But back to you, sis.
Yeah, the only other point I would want to add about the plea is initially there were 3 women arrested. I'm sorry, 4 women arrested at the time of Dr. York's arrest and charged as co-conspirators. One, Esther Cole, was targeted because she did not want to go along with Jake's plot. She also was targeted, and next thing you know, she ended up arrested in the setup of this conspiracy. She left the case early, and that left Chandra Lampkin and Khadijah Merritt, both of whom at the time were very young mothers. They had breastfeeding children. And part of why Dr. York took the plea is he was told that if he took the plea, they would be released. So I think many of us may not have that level of loyalty, fortitude, and sacrifice to do such a thing. But in addition to the fact that he is obviously in duress, everyone knows that video is circulating, which it should not be on the internet. Anyone that knows Dr. York, if you see that, or anyone who doesn't know Dr. York can see someone who is flawless in appearance, a teacher and a speaker beyond compare on the planet, to see him at a point where he looks listless, he's nodding, he's not even verbally responding to what he's being asked. That is a form of psychological torture, and he took it under duress. And I think sometimes, in my experience in dealing with this, people can get spooked out and not see what's actually happening, because that is something that's happening on a regular basis. People are coerced into pleas on a regular basis. That is a reality of being Black and brown in this country. We all know there are plea doctors. We all know people feel trapped and they take a plea for things that they do not do. That is very common in our community. So it just puzzles me how, when that is presented with Dr. York, that is such a difficult concept to wrap our mind around. Because those of us who are conscious know the injustice in this country, know that people are coerced, know that we have probably hundreds of thousands of innocent people incarcerated. If Dr. York is being targeted, why wouldn't they use those same tactics on him? And that's what has happened. And again, that plea was withdrawn. So you're seeing a lot of public push of the plea, but there was no public push in when the plea was withdrawn.
So let me ask the last question, and then we'll resume this after we follow up on all the comments that'll be in the chat. And everybody who watched this now and watch this later, please don't leave disrespectful comments. Please leave intellectual, intelligent, educated comments, because at the end of the day, those are the only ones that's going to get answered. Everything else is going to get deleted. I'm telling you off the break. You know what I'm saying? All of that name calling, all of that, I mean, that low vibration stuff, it's just going to get deleted. Don't waste your time. I mean, or you can, but I'm just going to delete it anyway. But ask real questions, you know what I mean? Real questions. With that being said, does anybody have communication with Dr. York? Anybody in this circle? Does anybody in this circle have any recent communication with Dr. York, and how is he doing, if that's so?
I could touch on that. Yes, quite a few people. I won't specify who, but quite a few people in this chat here does have recent communication with Dr. York. Like I said, Dr. York's still fighting for his freedom. He has multiple attorneys on his.
What I'm trying to say is, we know he's like 78 years old. How is he doing? You know what I'm saying? Is his health wise? Is his mind wise? You know what I'm saying? Is he exercise? I mean, anything like that. You know what I mean? His well-being, if you will.
I mean, Dr. York, he's the same doctor. You know, he's just as sharp as he's always been. Of course, his body's aging, but when you talk to him, he still teaches the same way. When he gets on the phone, he's still talking about what's going on in the news and what he's seeing on TV and why things are happening and what they're happening for. He still teaches the exact same way, just as sharp with it. Still talking about religion and breaking down the Bible the same way he's always done. Like he told us that he works out on a daily basis. He's like, you know, even though I'm in where I'm at, I still got to stay in shape. So there was a point in time he said he was doing 1,000 push-ups a day. And he was like, I just do that just to kind of get my mind off of what's going on in here. So Dr. York, like I said, but at the same time, him being over 70, 76 years old, he's his body or his skin suit is it is what it is. But
right.
as a man at his age, he's as strong as he can be. I'll tell you that. He's a lot stronger than people you see walking out here on a daily basis. And he's just as sharp as he's always been. So a lot of people think if you talk to him, if you hear him, you hear he's like, it's something he said. He was like, y'all think I'm 76. I'm really still 56. And he said, my mind still think like I'm 56. So that's one of the things that he said as of recently. So Dr. York is still sharp. One thing I do want to point out, because I keep seeing it in the chat though, we got to realize that Dr. York, when he first entered into his plea, when he first got arrested, Dr. York pled not guilty. And he didn't take the plea agreement, and that's what we have to remember. Is we keep saying he pled guilty. What that does is it paints a false narrative as if he came in and said, okay, you caught me, I'm guilty. No, that's not how it happened. Dr. York pled innocent many times and held that for quite some time. And this is what you see on this the screen here. It shows when he entered into the plea agreement, when he entered into his not plea agreement and things of that. I mean, his innocence, when he pled innocent. What we keep doing is saying, oh, well, he pled guilty. And like the sister mentioned earlier, and I'm going to just say this because maybe some people came in late, over 98% of all cases in the United States of America in a plea agreement where somebody pleads guilty for something that they didn't do or for something that they didn't do to the extent of which they're being charged for. That's not abnormal, especially in most of those cases are people of African descent or Black Americans or whatever you want to call it. So no, Dr. York did not just plead guilty. He pled not guilty. And after he was being told by his attorney, which was Manny Aurora, that his wives and the other women that was arrested with him, because he wasn't arrested by himself, he was arrested with 3 other women, and he was being told that his wives and the other women were being treated the same exact way he was being treated. One of those women having multiple sclerosis, which we know is a brain deteriorating disease that can kill her. He was being said that if you don't, the reality of it is the government wants you. They don't want the rest of these people. So if you just sacrifice yourself and you plead guilty, and everybody else can walk free, and then you'll just take the hit for everybody. So Dr. York, being the man that he is, he took that hit. Now people will say, well, oh, I've heard people say this on the internet, like Chuck Morgan. Well, the women was already free by the time he took his plea agreement. Yeah, but if you know anything about Dr. York's case, you know that he was incarcerated for over a year before he even seen the light of day. That he didn't come in contact with nobody. He didn't see anybody until a year later, over a year later, and then that's when he was being told what was going on. So he wasn't aware that his wife and the other women were already let free. He was being told that they were still incarcerated and that they was being treated this way, and the government wants you. So why would you make the rest of these people sacrifice, and why would you put all these other people in danger? If you just take this plea agreement, then this whole thing will be over with, and you can just sit with that. And that's what you see on that video, where you don't hear him verbally say or verbally respond to anything. Everything is him just nodding his head yes or no, even to the point where if you look in the video, you see that there's questions that's being asked, and he looks at his attorney as if he doesn't really understand what's going on. And his attorney tells him to nod his head yes, and that's what he does. He just nods his head yes. So I just wanted to say that for the people that's in the comments that's saying that. I yield.
Indeed. And on that way out the door, I yield the floor to anybody who want to have some departing words. 1220 on the East Coast. Somebody, Marvin Wright, thank you for the super chat. Thank each and every one of y'all for being respectful for this conversation. This is a sensitive conversation, and we tend to have many more on this topic. So I just want everybody to be respectful. I want everybody to ask intelligent questions, not stupid throwing stones and mud. We already heard all the nasty stuff. We already heard all the filthy stuff. We already heard all of that. Ask an intelligent question, and then we can get an intelligent answer. Period. Point blank. So let me yield the floor to anybody who have any closing remarks as we get out of here. From this, I got to go back and watch this myself. I've been watching the chat, making sure people don't try to sniper everything up in every comment up in here. So anybody want to close us out?
Yeah, I want to mention one thing, right? You see the screen?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, now this is a thing to point out, right? Is that right here it says, now you notice when we read earlier, right? about Issa Johnson, how he said nothing never happened. He always said it never happened, right? But the thing, right, that wasn't mentioned was the fact that you had an expert witness that came on who did not originally, right, was not his original caseworker, wasn't even on the stand for the main person, right? And so if they claim, and a person came right after Issa Johnson said no, he did not get molested multiple different times, right, within his testimony, the expert came right behind and said, oh yeah, he's lying, even though that person was the original one on his caseworker. This is how you know it's a conspiracy, because the government already knew prior, because that was January of 2004, which is when the case started, right? What you're looking at the screen is the guilty plea, right? And it deals with defining the guilty plea, right? This happened in 2003, a year before. They end up rejecting this. And look what they said here. Look at what the government themselves say, right? It say Issa Johnson, being the son of Kathy Johnson, the wife, common wife, or however you would describe it, or at least the longest partner of Mr. York, right, was born on September 11th, 1988. Issa, I may be honest, right, with this court, was never stated that anything ever happened to him, as best as we can tell it from eyewitnesses. So how is it, right, that people are saying that something happened when even the government itself said that he stated that nothing would never happen? So these are the evidence. Look, continue to research. The molestation begin either at 4 or 5 years of age. Crystal Harden gives a very graphic, right, account. She had left Issa Johnson, right, look, with his mother and several others adults in the lower master bedroom, Mr. York resident in Eatonton, and she had simply gone to go to the bathroom. She felt that Issa is a little more a brother of hers, and she had come back and Issa was gone. And she said, where's Issa? And Issa is gone. And Kathy looked up towards the upper master bedroom and she ran up the steps and she was blocked by Habiba Washington. But she could see through this spiral staircase by Mr. York anally penetrating Issa. And Issa was crying. How did Issa Johnson molestation end? Only because of the raid of May 8th, 2002. Saha, again, one of the young people that was pulled off the compound on May 8, 2002, and until very recently, another young lady who refused to state whether or not she had been molested and had adamantly denied it. Recently, Saha says, yes, I lied. He did molest me. I'm confused. I care about him. In fact, the reason I didn't tell you was because I wanted to be able to go back to 404 Shady Dale Road. That's my life. I know nothing else. No hatred, no anger towards Miss York. Just a massive amount of confusion, right? So I'm saying this to say, right, that how is it, right, that how is it that the bills of particular, right, that was actually given, this is how they even open up the case on Dr. York. They opened the case on Dr. York because of the fact that they had this person named as Issa Johnson, right, as a victim when he was never a victim. You hear the government right there said that he said nothing ever happened. You hear Issa in his testimony a year later says that nothing ever happened, right? And even the person who said that they saw something happen to Issa, he said that that person, right, which is Belora, which is Crystal, right, Harden, right, he said that that person was after monies and that she said that they were going to get paid a lot of monies, right? And how you know, right, that to be true is because you had people that were suing Dr. York, right, for billions of dollars immediately, right? I don't know if y'all able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you scroll up, right? I don't know if you're able to see, but you see this? This
Yes,
was
sir.
the case. Look at the date. This is the day. This is January 25th, 2002, right? They would, right? This is Dr. York wasn't even seen by people at this time. This is a month, right, after his arrest, and a person was suing him for $1 billion. This is the case right here. Look it up. Look at the judge. This was Dr. York judge that was there, Hugh Lawson. This is the same person who recused himself of Dr. York case because he made a biased statement saying, I felt like Dr. York should have got 1,000 years or he should have been able to serve more time. So he had to get recused off the case. So you got people who's always been after, Dr. York finances for many, many years. because he had a large, or we as the organization, as the tribe, we had a large asset base. So people has always been trying to, get money from him, try to extort him. This has happened for many years, so that's a part of something that you got to really pay close attention to. Because why? Because the incident in which the FBI claims they had as count one was Florida. But why was no assets snatched up in Florida? This is what you have to realize, right? Why was no assets snatched in Florida if they claimed that the transportation, right, happened from Florida in the first count, right? Because they would have had to seize Florida and forfeit it just like they did 404 Shady Dale Road, right? So how is it that you see what I just showed in that transcript, which is the plea, the guilty plea? You see the government saying that this girl said that she wanted to go back to the land. This is one of the people who a year later end up testifying against Dr. York. So we have to realize that there's two situations that's going on that we always have to keep in mind when we're dealing with this case. The state case and the federal case, right? They attempted, right, to charge him, right, with molestation in the state case, but they lost that case, right? And they dead docketed and they ran to the federal. So they had to find extra charges to see what can we actually charge this man with. And that's what you're actually seeing within the case. And how you know that is this. You listening, right, Talker Bay? You listening? You listening, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. So they keep saying they keep saying that there's a lot of thousands of people, right, that's in the case and etc. and all this stuff. Those are all lies. Those are all misconceptions to really actually sway the people mindset and say, oh, he was molesting all these children. Oh, he was doing that. He was doing this, right? So when you look at this is the list of witnesses. So when you say, okay, well, there's hundreds of witnesses and what happened? Well, this is what you got to realize. When you're looking at this list of witnesses, can you go up, right? When you're looking at this list of witnesses, look, all it said SA. What is SA? SA is special agents, because these are the 300 federal agents, right, and sheriff agents that came and and raided the land. They had to be witnesses against Dr. York, because anything that they touched, there was a witness to it. So that's the big propaganda of all these 100 people who was witnesses. Look, this is the 100 people that they're talking about that was witnesses. You don't see nobody that you know. They're all special agents. Look, all these special, look where these people, Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms, right? These are these people, right? But then you start to notice, you go up, right? So you start to notice that, look, all these are special agents. And now look, you're just now getting to the real list, right, of people, of actual people. And then look who you see. Look at the list. Look, these are the list of witnesses. You see the, that is the reality of what it is. But you know why it never came out, right? Because they hid this in the state case, right? You only come to find out that it was only 13 alleged, and like they said earlier, 8 of the 13 said that nothing never happened, right? So the same people who Dr. York was charged for in the state case, right, are the same people who testified on Dr. York's behalf. That's why they want to hide the sentencing. Because if you look at the state case, you say, wait a minute, y'all said that all this happened to all these people, but then a year later, right, after the plea, these same people testified on Dr. York's behalf. And it was only 13, and 8 of 13 said nothing ever really happened, right? So what happens is that this is the misconception of the people that's out there, right? Is because they've never really seen these documents, right, to show who the actual witnesses were. You understand that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking at all them essays on that demonstration. Good night. Man, that's crazy. Well, I don't know. Y'all gonna have some people to come in, and they're going to be saying a whole bunch. So I'm looking forward to our next presentation for when they come in. And I will tell y'all right now, Sister Uma texted me, and she said that she'll be available to have a conversation around 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. I'm gonna try to make myself available. I want to hear what she has to say. But I'm looking forward to our next presentation with the brothers and sisters that was here demonstrating for Dr. York. And again, I don't want any antagonizers to try to even come up here and think we're going to have some mosh pit discussion. But if you have good, intelligent responses as a rebut, you're welcome to come. You're welcome to come through. I'll share it with the brothers and the sister here. And if they want to sit down and have a conversation to you, we can make that with you. We can make that thing happen. But with that being said, family, I appreciate y'all. Anybody want to say anything before we get out of here? I hope y'all replay this on Clubhouse or something, because Clubhouse is where it goes down, and I need to get over there. If y'all play this, please send me a link so I can look at the haters squirm. Please. With that being said, everybody good?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, right?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you close it out. You want to close it out?
Oh, it's up to you.
No, I was just gonna say one thing, and I'll let you close it out. Right? Is that this really boils down to people who are really there, right? When we're talking about Dr. York, right? And you notice that it's the same people saying the same thing, and the story is very weak, right? These people would never, ever get on a phone call like this, right? Because of the fear, right? Because they know that the truth is really there. So they fear actually coming on live, right, and questioning, right, this type of panel or people who they know the truth. So they have to be in a position where they actually are controlling the moderators and they're controlling the panel, right? So the facts, so the sharing of the screen won't get out there. So the facts of the case won't get out there, right? And this is why a lot of people, they get emotional. Like I see somebody say, stab Dr. York in the comments, right? You got all these people, and you see, right, Chuck Morgan, these people, I see somebody say Chuck Morgan was there, but these people are actually scared to get on these calls, right? We're saying, listen, open up the mic, right? Let people ask their questions. All these people who claim if it was thousands of people, hundreds of people, whatever people want to claim, where they at? Tell them to speak. Right? Ain't no way you should be able to not tell your story if you're a real victim. The problem is they ain't real victims, so we don't feel sorry for them. We apologize for all the other stuff and people thinking this, but people who was there, they know that they fakers. They know that they liars. They know that they got agreements against the government, right? So it has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with the actual truth getting out there, right? And us having to stand up against people who won't even stand up on these type of calls. They like shadow people. They hide behind closed doors because they know when the real questions come out, they have to speak for what they said on the stand. And they're scared of that. They're going to continue to run from subjects like that. I yield to the sister Mary Ted.
Indeed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, indeed.
Just to close out again, Brother Tahaka, we want to thank you for another time to have an opportunity to present the facts on this platform, and we look forward to the next time of coming on with the facts. Just one thing I did want to pose before we close is one thing to keep in mind in this case is not being able to see what happened in the court case. It was very deliberate that the court was closed and it was shown on closed circuit television. It's very deliberate that the transcripts were closed and inaccessible following the trial, because what you're not going to see in those trial transcripts speaks a lot to the fallacies of the accusations against Dr. York. We definitely empathize and sympathize people who really have been through molestation. But if you had access to being in court or seeing the transcripts, you're not going to see any evidence presented that supports the allegations made against Dr. York. If they're saying intent was for all these sexual acts, you're not going to see any pictures. You're not going to see any bloody underwear. You're not going to see any hospital records. You're not going to see any video knowing any Black leader, any melanated leader is being surveilled. That's a given. So why is there no video presented that substantiates any of the claims made against Dr. York? Why is it that you have alleged victims that are in the indictment, but the government won't put them on the stand and they testify for the defense? That means the government even knew the allegations that were the allegations placed in the indictment in the case involving these people were false. Because they did it when they testify on the behalf of the government, why would they testify on the side of the defense? And then in turn, how could you then charge Dr. York based on individuals who said nothing happened? How is there no DNA evidence? How are there no pregnancies? So we of course are showing the transcripts of things, the inconsistencies that we can see the criminal acts that were committed by some of these alleged victims, but people actually also have to think about what's not there and what wasn't presented. I yield.
Indeed, I appreciate you. Cool Cat say, TB, give me a fez. You got plenty. You got to earn this crown over here. Nah. But anyway, I appreciate the family for coming through. And one thing I definitely appreciate is that they open for all questions. And I appreciate the Moorish World TV citizens for keeping our visitors, not the ones on the screen with me, but those that's in the chat with you, keeping them calm enough to hear this side of the story, because many times, unbeknownst to themselves, a lot of the cut-ins, a lot of the sly remarks, it becomes a distraction where one who really wants to hear this side of the story don't get a chance to hear it, because there's all of these distractions that's going on. And some of it is intentional and some of it is not. But nevertheless, it's just good just to listen sometime to hear the other side. And so that's why I'm here, because I'm interested in hearing the other side. Like I said before, over the years, I've heard since what was it, 2002, whatever it was, I've heard the other side over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So let Moorish World TV, whether you agree, disagree, right, wrong, or indifferent, let Moorish World TV give the other side a platform so you can make an educated decision and not a one-sided decision, as we have heard for the last, who knows, over 20 years. We always heard the other side. We always heard it. It is what it is. So I appreciate you, family. I see y'all tomorrow during the day. Thank you again, family. Thank you to my bro. He must have had to go to bed then, because he over there in Liberia is late over there. So it's probably about, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's probably about 3 o'clock over there, so or later. So he's gone to bed. But again, thank you, family. Thank you, Sis Mary Tat, Hunt, is I saying that right? I'm gonna say Ray. Is that right? That's right.
Hoontweet.
Say it again.
Hoontweet.
Nabab, Dr. Receipts, Sanan. Come on, Nabab. You gotta say something. Take us out, bro. How you doing, bro? That's my bro. There, he be having that fire.
Hey, no, I'm just sitting back. I'm looking at the comments here. I mean, I think we said a lot. I think that it's important for everybody to actually, and maybe everybody wasn't able to digest everything that was said here right now while it's live, but I think it's important for everybody to go back and actually look at the videos, pause it, look at the documentation, look at what's being presented, and see the actual facts of the case. Like we said, I see people in the comments. You got some people that just hate Dr. York. You got some people that hate Black movements altogether. You got some people, I see somebody that stab Dr. York, but his name is Slapper Moore. So, you got people like that that's going to hate regardless, that we're not really worried about. But I think the main important thing is that for these people that are saying that they were victimized, we can go back and forth all day and present facts and present the evidence and present the transcript. But a lot of these people claim that they was ready to get up and talk and have a conversation. So we can have it on a platform just like this. You sit on one side of the table, we sit on the other side of the table. You present your evidence, we present our evidence. And at the end of the day, what you're going to realize is there was no evidence to convict Dr. Malachi York. The only reason that they were able to get away with this is because it was closed off from the public. And because it was closed off from the public, you had no eyes that was able to look at it and see what actually took place or to call out a foul that was happening in the court case. So they just covered everything up, closed everything out, sent him to prison and hope to throw away the key and that he'll die in there. A lot of people are even still surprised that he's still alive in the most secure prison in the United States at the age that he is now. But I think that that's a blessing. I think that what we got to focus on is focus on the progress for us as a people, and just continuously move forward. I appreciate you for allowing us on the platform. This won't be the last time you hear from us. We got a lot to say, but you know, what we really want is we really want those who had something to say to come out. We really want those.
And we haven't seen that yet, Nabab.
Yeah, and that's
we see that on them spaces like a clubhouse, but where we can show and prove, we don't see it.
Exactly. It's been quite a few spaces that we got on, and those people 9 times out of 10 run away. They run away from questions, or you know, we know you're in cahoots with the moderators, and everybody's already against us. But it is what it is. We calling out anybody who said anything about Dr. York, whether it's a Chuck Morgan, whether it's a Tariq, whether it's a Ada, whoever you are. If you had something to say, and if you had real evidence, pull it out, put it on the table. We're going to present our evidence. You present your evidence and let the people judge and say what's what. That's the fact of the matter. That's the reality, because we can argue back and forth and he say, she say, but what's really going to show the evidence is what happened in the case. So let's really get down to what happened in the case, and you know, that's the best that we can say. But once again, I appreciate you. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate the rest of my family for getting up. Dr. York is innocent and he will be free. Thank you.
And I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Y'all have a good night, family. All my Moors, happy holy day. It's Friday. I hope y'all go into the temple and be a contributing factor to the uplifting of all of humanity. Assalamu alaikum to my sister Amatullah Abdul Rahman in the building, just getting off of work. Sis, I hope you have a beautiful night. Rested up, because you got to go back work. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But happy Friday to everybody. Happy holy day to everybody. Family, stay positive. Always remember what I said last night. The moment that you're about to give up, success is right around the corner, but you'll never know if you don't keep going and go around that corner. With that being said, peace and love, family. I'm out of here, getting ready for another day for work for myself, getting ready for holy day and possible live stream tomorrow. So peace and love, family. Peace and love.